Chapter 3843. Romance Chinese Network. The Shattered Space had been created by the shocking war at the Death Cliff many years ago. Those who lived there were the descendants of the tribes that had participated in the war. Amongst them, the Primordial clans and the Devouring Devil clan were the most powerful. These two clans were natural enemies in the origin world, but because the origin world had been created by the patriarch of the Devouring Devil clan, even the powerful primordial clans didn't dare act rashly. All these years, the primitive tribe had been lying low. Now, they had finally made a move. Princess Huang was one of their branches. However, she had been separated from Fang Chen. As for the descendants of the primitive tribe in the Shattered Space, Fang Chen did not kill them. After all, no matter how thin the blood in their bodies was, they still had the blood of the primitive tribe. Strictly speaking, they were the descendants of the primitive tribe. No matter what the primitive tribe thought, Fang Chen did not want to make enemies. He vaguely felt that Supreme Master Fu Jian and the others might have a complicated relationship with the primitive tribe. Therefore, he had killed the devouring demon tribe but spared Elder Lin and the others. Whoosh! After a long time, Elder Lin and the others came to their senses. They panted heavily and the power in their bodies fluctuated. Their bodies trembled and they fell to the ground. The mountain peak had been flattened by the shocking sword. The heavens platform had been turned into ruins. Blood flowed like a river and the corpses of the devouring demon tribe were piled up like mountains. A terrifying bloody aura filled the entire shattered space. Elder Lin and the others were shocked. If Fang Chen had not been afraid of the primitive tribe, they would have been killed by the heaven's sword like the young master of the thick fog tribe. "Is that the heaven's sword?" Elder Lin asked in a hoarse voice. The others nodded and their eyes were filled with disbelief. Rumor had it that the heaven's sword was left in Sword Burial Sky after the fall of a sword principal almighty. Although it was powerful, no one had expected it to be so powerful. With just one sword, it had killed the young master of the thick fog tribe and the others. It's too powerful. It's unbelievable. Everyone felt as if they were dreaming. If not for the fact that the thick smoke on the battlefield had not yet dissipated, they would have even suspected that they were hallucinating. After Fang Chen killed the Tiger King and the Bear King, he let Bai Qingxian and the giant wolf leave the Sword Burial Sky first. After all, although the Tiger King was dead, there were still many of his tribes in his territory. "Don't worry, leave it to us." The giant wolf patted its chest with its huge claws and promised. Fang Chen nodded. Then, with a thought, the heaven-destroying sword emitted a bright light. His body gradually faded until it completely disappeared. The next moment, Fang Chen arrived at the place where the heaven-destroying sword was. However, the dark cave abode had already changed its appearance. Fang Chen looked around and realized that he was in the middle of a vast desert. The sky was filled with yellow sand. However, it was unable to get close to Fang Chen's body. He held the heaven-destroying sword in his hand and felt a scorching energy coming from the sword. Fang Chen's heart skipped a beat and he suddenly stabbed the heaven-destroying sword into the ground. Immediately, the ground exploded and a terrifying energy gushed out. The sword chi crisscrossed and shone brightly in the desert. It was also at this moment that the densely packed sword demons rushed over. When they arrived in front of Fang Chen, they instantly stopped and knelt down. "Greetings, Master." The arrogant sword demons actually knelt down to a human martial artist. If the outside world knew about this, they would be shocked. However, Fang Chen wasn't surprised at all. This was because after he evolved the ultimate sword art and controlled the heaven-destroying sword, there was a lot of information about the sword art inheritance in his mind. This included information about the sword demons. The owner of the heaven-destroying sword was a supreme sword cultivator. His attainments in the sword art had reached an incredible level. In fact, Fang Chen even found out that the owner of the heaven-destroying sword had once fought with Supreme Master Fu Jian. As for the outcome, he didn't know. Supreme Master Xuezhu. Fang Chen softly muttered these 4 words. They represented a glorious era of the sword art. Unfortunately, they died in the war at the Cliff of Death. The heaven-destroying sword was nurtured by Supreme Master Xuezhu's life. Its power was far beyond ordinary holy path weapons. At its peak, it was comparable to the legendary supreme weapons. These sword demons were born from the sword chi in Supreme Master Xuezhu's body and the heaven-destroying sword. Controlling the heaven-destroying sword naturally meant controlling the sword demons. Rise. Fang Chen looked calm, but there was a ripple in his heart. Every single one of the densely packed sword devils possessed a combat strength at the Saint Realm. This was definitely one of his trump cards, and once he utilized it, it would definitely be able to easily obliterate numerous residences in the origin world. We swear to be loyal to Master. We will not hesitate to go through fire and water for you, the sword demon said in a deep voice. Fang Chen nodded and asked, how many people are left in your sword demon tribe? Master, our sword demon tribe used to have 100,000 people. However, for countless years, outsiders would occasionally break into the sword burial heaven and kill our people. The blood of our old master has completely dried up, causing our sword demon tribe to be unable to reproduce. Now, there are only a little more than 10,000 people left in our tribe. Fang Chen was speechless. He didn't dare to imagine the earth-shattering scene of 100,000 sword demons attacking together. However, he couldn't help but sigh. The environment in the shattered space was really terrible. For so many sword demons to die in the endless years, it wasn't hard to imagine how many outsiders had died. Fortunately, Fang Chen said softly. Although there were only a little more than 10,000 sword demons left, this was still a powerful combat power that couldn't be ignored. It was no exaggeration to say that if they fought in an orderly manner, their combat power could instantly kill a saint. Even if he encountered an expert of half-step chaotic supremacy, he would be able to contend with them. At this moment, Fang Chen thought of the Ghost Manor Lord. If it wasn't for him, his cultivation realm wouldn't have fallen and he wouldn't have reached this stage. The demon-devouring clan of the origin world had the 4 great sanctuaries and countless manors. The lord of each manor had strength close to that of a saint. In the past, Fang Chen couldn't compete with them. However, it was different now. With these 10,000 sword demons, Fang Chen didn't have to fear the other manors, let alone the Ghost Manor. His eyes flashed with a shocking killing intent. Master, this first heaven is the main camp of our sword demon tribe. For so long, no outsiders have ever entered, the leader of the sword demon tribe said. Fang Chen nodded. The heaven-destroying sword seemed to be below the heaven punishment platform in the second heaven, but it was actually in the first heaven. Right now, he was in the first layer of heaven. No outsider had ever entered this place before, because this was the true headquarters of the Sword Devil tribe. Prime Xuezhu's corpse was scattered in the first layer of heaven. Chapter 3844. Romance Chinese network. More than 10,000 sword demons had recognized Fang Chen as their master. This was a force that could not be ignored. With this trump card, Fang Chen could move unhindered through space. He could even fight in the Cliff of Death. He still remembered that the Ghost Emperor's ghost weapon was in the Cliff of Death. He came here to find the ghost weapon, but he didn't know where Princess Huang was. Did she come to the Cliff of Death as well? Fang Chen muttered to himself. A complicated look appeared in his eyes. After a while, he finished reorganizing all the sword demons. He took a step forward and came to the center of the desert. There was a stream here. Master, the leader of the sword demons said, Old Master's finger bone and skull fell into this stream. As Fang Chen approached the stream, he felt a terrifying force rushing towards him. Just as he felt danger approaching, the Sky Destroyer sword in his hand trembled slightly. A mighty force suppressed the terrifying force in the stream. Fang Chen immediately felt his body relax. The leader of the sword demons didn't say anything. Fang Chen understood that the finger bone and skull of Supreme Xuezhu had fallen into the stream. As long as he entered the stream, there was hope that he could bring the finger bone and skull out. That was the skeleton of a Supreme. Even if Supreme Xuezhu had fallen many years ago, the power it contained was still not to be underestimated. If it was before, he wouldn't have dared to take the risk. But it was different now. He had the Sky Destroyer sword and wanted to give it a try. Master, be careful. The leader of the sword demons reminded. Supreme Xuezhu's skeleton had fallen into the stream. Over the years, The power of the finger bone and skull had completely changed the water quality of the stream. With the current corrosive power of the stream, even a 9th-rank saint would be vaporized instantly if he entered. But Fang Chen had the Sky Destroyer sword, so they were not worried. Fang Chen nodded. Then, he took a step forward and entered the stream. Instantly, the water in the stream began to surge and surge. Fang Chen was already prepared. The heaven-destroying sword emitted a layer of sword chi that completely enveloped his body. Despite the corrosive nature of the stream, it was unable to harm Fang Chen in the slightest. So strong. Even through the halo of sword chi, Fang Chen could still feel the corrosiveness of the stream, as well as the vast waves that had been baptized by the passage of time. Gulp. Not long after, he dived to the bottom of the stream and soon saw a finger bone. Found it. The heaven-destroying sword trembled and a strong suction force sucked the finger bone out of the soil. When the finger bone fell into Fang Chen's palm, it instantly fused with his finger. Wang. His mind trembled, and at the same time, his finger began to transform. He could sense that after fusing with Paragon Blood Execution's finger bone, his finger was now filled with boundless power, as if it could rip the sky apart. Voila! He unconsciously extended his finger out of the sword energy halo. To his surprise, the terrifying corrosiveness of the stream water was ineffective against his finger. As expected, Fang Chen was overjoyed. After fusing with Paragon Blood Execution's finger bone, the hardness of his finger was comparable to that of a supreme being's body. The only pity was that this was the only finger he had. If he extended his other fingers, they would meet with misfortune. Where's the skull? The finger bone was of great help to Fang Chen. He could not wait to test it out. If he used his full strength, he would be able to deal a terrifying amount of damage. But right now, the most important thing was to find the skull. Fusing with the finger bone had already benefited him so much. What about fusing with the skull? Would it be able to protect his primordial spirit and make it immortal? Thinking of this, Fang Chen was extremely excited. He used the heaven-destroying sword and his finger that had fused with Paragon Blood Execution's finger bone to feel for the skull. After an hour, Fang Chen was filled with doubts. The Sword Devil leader had clearly told him that Paragon Blood Execution's finger bone and skull had fallen into the stream. But he had only found the finger bone and not the skull. What's going on? Fang Chen frowned and was a little puzzled. If the skull was still there, his finger and heaven-destroying sword would have sensed a familiar aura. Right now, he had searched the entire bottom of the stream but couldn't find it. He had almost dug up the soil at the bottom of the stream. Impossible. For so many years, no outsider has ever entered the first heaven, let alone come to this stream. The Sword Devil tribe is guarding this place. They couldn't have stolen it. Fang Chen analyzed. Then, the skull must be in the stream. But he hadn't found it. What was going on? The skull was extremely important to him. It was very likely that his primordial spirit would reach the path manifestation level. Just thinking about it made him excited. I must find it. Fang Chen clenched his fist and said to himself. In the barren desert, more than 10,000 sword devils surrounded the stream. The Sword Devil leader's eyes were shining as he waited for Fang Chen's return. Boss, can Master find the finger bone and skull left behind by the old master? This was related to whether they could leave the broken space and the cliff of death. Naturally, they were very concerned. Master is so young, but he was recognized by the heaven-destroying sword. He should be able to find the finger bone and skull. The Sword Devil leader pondered. In fact, he wasn't confident. But he couldn't possibly say something that would hurt his tribe's confidence. They had guarded Sword Burial Sky for countless years. This was their only hope to leave. Since things have come to this, we can only wait for Master's good news. Yeah, at least Master has brought us hope. We believe in Master, the Sword Devils said in unison. Sword Burial Sky was adjacent to the Tiger King's territory. The descendants of the primitive tribes had completely retreated from Sword Burial Sky. After Bai Qingxian and the giant wolf came out, they rushed to the Tiger King's lair. They killed all the Tiger King's tribesmen and occupied the Tiger King's territory. Whoosh! After doing all this, Bai Qingxian and the giant wolf looked at each other and smiled excitedly. I didn't expect it to work this time. The giant wolf shook his head and said. Bai Qingxian nodded. Yeah, it worked. Fang Chen's performance was beyond his expectations. At this moment, he was even more impressed. No wonder he was chosen by the group of old monsters in the chaotic realm to carry out the mission. His talent was insane. The Tiger King's territory has already been taken over by us. The devouring demons have also been annihilated by that fellow. After this battle, the descendants of the primitive tribes won't dare to go against us even if they have 100 guts, the giant wolf said. I didn't expect that we would be able to unify the shattered space. Chapter 38:45. Supreme Xue Zhu's phalanx had been fused. In terms of the strength of Fang Chen's finger, it was close to the supreme realm. However, it was only a finger. The rest of his body was still lacking in tempering. Rip! At the bottom of the stream, Fang Chen came out of the mud. His body was covered in mud, but there was a joyful smile on his face. After more than a month of hard work, he had finally found the skull. Of course, he mainly relied on the feeling of his finger to find it. Moreover, he found that the skull contained a kind of primordial spirit essence. This was the primordial spirit of an expert in the nascent soul realm. This kind of primordial spirit essence could greatly enhance the primordial spirit of a warrior. For Fang Chen, who was about to condense his Tao, it was simply too important. Buzz. With a thought, the broken skull drilled into his mind and fused with his head. At this moment, his head trembled violently and he fell into a blurry state. He felt the smell of blood raging in his mind. He also saw the countless resentful spirits on the reincarnation road fighting with others. Tragic scenes were annihilated in the long river of history. Buzz. His heart palpitated and he hurriedly urged his primordial spirit to gradually stabilize it. He also used his finger to forcibly stabilize the skull. It took 3 days for the skull to completely fuse with his head. Phew! Fang Chen slowly opened his eyes and breathed a sigh of relief. After fusing with the phalanx, the strength of his finger was comparable to a Supreme Realm expert. Now that he had fused with Supreme Xue Zhu's skull, the strength of his head had reached the level of a half-step chaotic Supreme. Most importantly, the Supreme Being's skull was extremely protective of his primordial spirit. Furthermore, the primordial spirit essence within the skull was also slowly being absorbed by him. He looked into his mind and saw that his primordial spirit was strengthening. If he could completely absorb the primordial spirit essence in the skull, his primordial spirit would definitely be able to condense his Tao. At that time, his combat strength would soar to a terrifying level. Of course. In addition, the greatest benefit of the skull was that he could completely control the Sword Devil tribe and make them completely loyal to him. This was the greatest help for Fang Chen at this stage. This was equivalent to directly establishing a force that belonged to him. Moreover, this force was countless times stronger than the Ghost Palace and other palaces. Buzz. With a thought, he left the stream and appeared in the barren desert. More than 10,000 sword devils saw this and were overjoyed and shouted excitedly. Master, have you found it? The leader asked. Fang Chen nodded and flicked his finger. Supremacy's aura. At the same time, his head. His head. We pledge our lives to follow Master. Fang Chen waved his hand, allowing the sword demons to stand up. Then, he took out a special Sumeru ring. Don't resist. I will put you into the Sumeru ring and bring you out of the broken space. Of to it. He bowed deeply to the void and finally took a step forward. He left the sword burial heaven and entered the Tiger King's territory. Buzz. Bai Qingxian and Giant Wolf sensed him as soon as he entered Tiger King's territory. They appeared in front of Fang Chen in a flash. How was it? Giant Wolf admired Fang Chen. It was as if the water of the Yellow River flowed from the sky. He approved of Fang Chen from the bottom of his heart. The latter was recognized by the Sky Destroyer sword at such a young age. Moreover, he killed so many people in Sword Burial Heaven. Fang Chen nodded. I've gained a lot. That's great. Bai Qingxian clenched his fists and cried out agitatedly, Tiger King and Bear King are already dead. You destroyed the devouring demons. Now, only the descendants of the primitive tribes are left in this shattered space. However, after the battle at Sword Burial Heaven, they won't dare to go against us even if they have 100 guts. Bai Qingxian expressed his thoughts. He was ready to join forces with Giant Wolf and use the power of the Sky Destroyer sword to unify the broken space and collect all the cultivation resources. Then, he would break the sword formation with Fang Chen and leave the broken space. All right. Fang Chen nodded. He had no interest in unifying the broken space. He went to the messy stone forest and entered the sword formation to train himself. He left the rest to Bai Qingxian and Giant Wolf. He also told the two of them to inform him if they needed anything. Just like that, the broken space began to unify. In a secluded place, the base camp of the descendants of the primitive tribes. Old Lin, Bai Qingxian and Giant Wolf have taken over Tiger King's territory. They are fighting everywhere to unify the broken space. The descendants of the primitive tribes said. This was a heavy blow to them. Perhaps, this is an opportunity for us. Old Lin said casually. What do you mean? The others were stunned. They looked at Old Lin and waited for his explanation. Old Lin smiled. With the strength of the descendants of the primitive tribes, can we fight against the Sky Destroyer sword? Everyone shook their heads. It was impossible. The Sky Destroyer sword was too strong. Then, if they insist on unifying the broken space, we won't be able to stop them. Why don't we just give in and help them unify the broken space? Old Lin said. The others wanted to explain, but Old Lin added, our goal is to leave the broken space and return to our tribe. Think about it, if Bai Qingxian unifies the broken space, will he stay here forever? The appearance of the Sky Destroyer sword meant that the seal of the broken space would be broken. So, why don't they take this opportunity to leave? But, even if they can break the seal of the broken space, they might not take us away. Someone asked. That's right. Back then in the Sword Burial Heaven, that guy let us go because of the primitive races. If we provoke him again, he will definitely be angry. With the Sky Destroyer sword, Fang Chen's strength was not something they could resist. The devouring demon tribe was what happened to them. Old Lin shook his head. I will think of a way to get in touch with him. As long as we give him enough conditions, I believe he will agree. However, I hope that during this period, the descendants of the primitive tribes will use all our strength to help Bai Qingxian and Giant Wolf unify the broken space unconditionally. Seeing that Old Lin had made his decision, the others nodded. They chose to believe in Old Lin. He had a unique perspective and they believed that he could lead them back to their tribe. Chapter 38-46. Without the devouring demon tribe led by the thick fog young master, it was almost certain that they would unify the shattered space. Even the descendants of the primitive tribes did not dare to stop them. The other factions even took the initiative to surrender. Bai Qingxian and the Giant Wolf worked together to suppress the entire shattered space. One day, the descendants of the primitive tribes also announced that they were willing to cooperate with Bai Qingxian and the Giant Wolf to unify the shattered space. In just a month, all the factions in the shattered space were recruited. After Bai Qingxian and the Giant Wolf accomplished this feat, they quickly came to the stone forest to inform Fang Chen. However, Fang Chen was currently comprehending the shocking sword formation in the stone forest. Logically speaking, with the heaven-destroying sword, a mere sword formation could be easily broken. However, Fang Chen did not do so. Instead, he used the power of the heaven-destroying sword to combine with the special sword mind of the sword formation to strengthen his own swordsmanship. Although the invincible sword Dao had evolved into an ultimate sword Dao, Fang Chen was still a beginner in the ultimate sword Dao. According to his memory, although Supreme Xuezhu's attainments in sword Dao were not as good as Supreme Fu Jian's, ordinary people could not compare to him. As for himself, Fang Chen believed that he was slightly stronger than Supreme Fu Jian in the same cultivation level. However, overall, he still had a long way to go. At the very least, Supreme Xuezhu and Supreme Fu Jian had comprehended more than one ultimate sword Dao. Whoosh! After an unknown amount of time, Fang Chen felt the sword qi in his body surging like a majestic river. It was shocking. However, The sword qi was under Fang Chen's control. It gradually spread throughout his limbs and bones before finally fusing with them. At that moment, Fang Chen's body underwent a tremendous change. There was a faint halo of sword qi on the surface of his skin. It was a sign that his sword body had materialized. Whoosh! He suddenly opened his eyes and fired countless sword glows, causing the entire heaven-shocking sword formation to lose its brilliance. The heaven-destroying sword in his hand let out a resonant sword cry, as if it was cheering along with its master. At the same time, tiny cracks appeared on the sword array. It only lasted for a quarter of an hour before it shattered. Voila! After the heaven-shaking sword formation was shattered, the monstrous sword qi madly gathered at the center of the formation. Fang Chen used his mind and the sky-crushing sword shot out. It pierced through the center of the formation and absorbed the monstrous sword qi into the sword. Dong! Bai Qingxian and the giant wolf were stunned when they heard the deafening sound coming from the stone forest. Immediately, their faces were filled with joy. It seemed like Fang Chen had succeeded. Sure enough, just as they were looking left and right, a tall and straight figure walked out of the shattered sword formation. Above his head, there was a sword light that descended from the 9 heavens, illuminating him. At this moment, Fang Chen was like a sword god, giving people an incomparably shocking feeling. How is it? The giant wolf was the first to regain his composure. He walked to Fang Chen and asked curiously. Fang Chen nodded. I have absorbed the power of the sword formation. The seal on the sky-crushing sword has also been lifted by half. After all, the sky-crushing sword was a sovereign-level weapon. Even after the baptism of time, it was still very powerful. No one below the sovereign level could control it. This was a popular saying in the chaotic void after the end of the Dark Age. Xuezhu seemed to have predicted this, which was why he had sealed the core power of heaven-destroying sword. That was why Fang Chen could control it so easily. However, with his current strength, if the seal on the sky-crushing sword was completely lifted, his body would not be able to withstand it. This was for his own good. Half. Bai Qingxuan's eyes flashed with a shocking light. That is enough to sweep through the shattered space. Even if he meets an invincible sage, he can still fight him. In fact, Bai Qingxian believed that with the sky-crushing sword, Fang Chen had the strength to fight against an ultimate sage. However, to be safe, he could not let Fang Chen take the risk. Fang Chen nodded. He had the heaven-destroying sword and the ultimate sword art. If he went all out, he should be able to fight against an invincible saint. However, his cultivation level had not recovered to the peak of his previous life. Therefore, he might be slightly weaker than an ultimate saint. However, Leng Xian's purpose of letting him enter the shattered space had been achieved. I wonder how Senior Leng Xian is doing. Suddenly, Leng Xian's beautiful face and her beautiful body that exuded a cold aura appeared in Fang Chen's mind. If it were not for Leng Xian, he would not have been able to enter the shattered space and recover his strength to this extent. After pondering for a moment, Fang Chen collected his thoughts and asked Bai Qingxian, how is the shattered space? It's already been unified. The other major and minor powers have all submitted to us. Only the descendants of the primitive races sent messengers to us. They have no intention to compete with us, and are even willing to help us unify this broken space. However, they have a request, and that is that when we leave, we can bring them with us. Fang Chen nodded. The chaotic realm and the primitive tribes were inextricably linked. Until now, he did not know the true intentions of the primitive tribes. Therefore, he would not act rashly and would not kill the descendants of the primitive tribes. Since he was going to leave the shattered space, he would just treat it as a favor. After a month, I will personally lift the seal of the shattered space and leave. What about the two of you? Fang Chen asked. Hearing this, Bai Qingxian and the giant wolf fell silent. Even though they were prepared, when the time came, the two of them still couldn't make a quick decision. I want to leave, Bai Qingxian said in a deep voice. He wanted to walk the path that his father had walked and feel his father's psychological journey. If he could help Fang Chen to complete the task of the chaotic realm, his father's spirit in heaven would be gratified. As for the giant wolf, after pondering, he chose to stay in the shattered space. I'd better stay. I'm too weak. When I reach the cliff of death, I will be killed. The giant wolf said. He was ready to gather all the resources in the shattered space to improve his strength. When he felt that his strength was enough to explore the cliff of death, he would leave on his own. I will go out and look for you, the giant wolf said. Everyone has their own ambitions, not to mention the wolf tribe. Fang Chen did not force them. They immediately made a decision. Fang Chen went to prepare the last thing while Bai Qingxian sent someone to bring the news to the descendants of the primitive tribes. Time passed and the shattered space gradually calmed down. However, the cliff of death was still surging with undercurrents. There were even more legends about the Ghost Emperor's ghost weapon. Chapter 3847. Soon, the 1-month deadline arrived. On this day, many people gathered in the Tiger King's territory. Most of them were the descendants of the primitive tribes. They had agreed to come here, hoping to leave the broken space. On the empty ground, Fang Chen exuded a terrifying aura. His eyes swept across the crowd. The martial artists who were under his gaze lowered their heads, not daring to look him in the eye. It's about time, Bai Qingxian said. Fang Chen nodded and said goodbye to the giant wolf. He then took a step forward and entered the burial sword sky. The giant wolf looked reluctant and said, "Be careful. Don't worry." Bai Qingxian patted the giant wolf's shoulder and said with a smile. He then followed Fang Chen into the burial sword sky. The descendants of the primitive tribes also walked in. As for the others, they were just here to watch the show. The giant wolf opened his eyes wide and said fiercely, "Those who have nothing to do with it, leave quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." As soon as he finished speaking, the martial artists quickly left the Tiger King's territory. The core of the shattered space was the burial sword heaven. Back then, when Blood Execution Sovereign died here, the burial sword heaven gradually took shape and gave birth to countless sword demons. When Fang Chen obtained the heaven-destroying sword, he already knew that if he wanted to leave the shattered space, he had to go through the burial sword heaven. For him now, with the Sky Destroyer sword, the broken space could not cause any hindrance to him. After entering the burial sword sky, he came to the first heaven at a speed invisible to the naked eye. The descendants of the primitive tribes were shocked. It was the first time they had come here. "Is this the legendary first heaven of the burial sword sky?" Someone exclaimed. "Gosh, the sword aura here is too strong. Even if you are not a sword cultivator, you can comprehend the way of the sword if you cultivate here for a long time. This is simply a holy land for cultivation." Everyone was amazed. However, Fang Chen ignored them and took out the Sky Destroyer sword. Suddenly, the entire first heaven trembled slightly. Then, a black altar broke out of the ground. Fang Chen leaped onto the black altar. Then, he exerted force in his palm and stabbed the heaven-destroying sword into the center of the black altar. At this moment, the entire black altar started to shake violently. Countless black auras filled the entire sky. In just an instant, everyone felt that the seal that sealed the shattered space seemed to be shattering. "Are you going out?" Old Lin and the others were extremely excited. After working hard for so many years, they were finally going to leave the shattered space and return to their tribe. They were already imagining what they would experience after returning to their tribe. They stared nervously at Fang Chen, not daring to make a sound, for fear of disturbing him as he opened the passage to leave. Hiss hiss hiss. The heaven-destroying sword let out a resonant sword cry as its terrifying power swept through the heavens and earth. Fang Chen stood on the black altar and sensed every inch of the shattered space. No wonder. Fang Chen grinned. The heaven-destroying sword was the key to opening the passageway. Since he controlled the heaven-destroying sword, he basically controlled the method to open the passageway. Swoosh. He formed a complicated seal with his hands. Soon, a black hole appeared on the hilt of the heaven-destroying sword. From this black hole, a terrifying power emerged. The heaven-destroying sword connected the black hole and the black altar together. Catcher. When everyone heard the last crisp sound, the thin film of the black hole shattered. It was at this moment that the humming sound from the heaven-destroying sword stopped abruptly. Fang Chen looked at the crowd and said, "The passageway has been opened. Quickly enter it." When everyone saw this, they did not hesitate. In a flash, they entered the black hole. Old Lin was the last to enter the black hole. He bowed to Fang Chen and thanked him. "Thank you." Crash. After the descendants of the primitive tribes entered the black hole, they disappeared without a trace. In the end, only Fang Chen and Bai Qingxian were left. "After we go out, the black hole will probably teleport us randomly. You and I may be separated." Bai Qingxian nodded with a solemn expression. After all, the other end of the black hole was the legendary Death Horizon. It was everyone's nightmare. His father died in the Death Horizon. "Be careful," Bai Qingxian said in a deep voice. "After I go out, I will look for the place where my father died and look for the inheritance he left behind. After I find my father's inheritance, I will meet up with you. Be careful." "Don't worry, I will be fine," Fang Chen said. Then, the two of them entered the black hole one after another. Dong. The moment the heaven-destroying sword disappeared, the black hole quickly dissipated. The entire sword burial sky was shrouded in a layer of vast power. No one could get close. Standing in the Tiger King's territory, Giant Wolf saw the scene and was shocked. However, he quickly adjusted his mentality. After he became an invincible sage, he could also leave the broken space and go to the Death Horizon. "Brothers, wait for me." At the Death Horizon, darkness shrouded the land and the smell of blood raged. The entire space gave off an extremely oppressive feeling. It was as if the god of death would come at any time. On a snow-covered mountain peak, two people were discussing. One of them was a woman in a black robe. There was a faint smile on her pretty face, and a sword cultivator was sitting cross-legged in front of her. Why was he a sword cultivator? Because there was a sword beside him. His body was filled with vast sword chi. It was as if he had merged with the sword. This was the legendary unity of man and sword. This was the unity of man and sword that could only be derived when one sword principle had reached an extremely high level. "Brother Lian, is what you said true?" The lady in the black robe asked softly. Her beautiful eyes were filled with passion. She was also a sword cultivator, but compared to Wang Lian, she was a far cry. She was very excited that Wang Lian was willing to teach her. "Brother Lian, you have already derived the ultimate sword principle?" The lady in the black robe was extremely shocked. The legendary ultimate sword principle could only be derived by super demon-like sword principle geniuses. Wang Lian nodded and slowly opened his eyes. Sword chi burst out from his body. Every move of his contained the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. This made the lady in the black robe even more convinced. "After thousands of years of cultivation, I have finally derived the ultimate sword principle. Now, my attainments in sword principle are no weaker than a half-step chaotic supreme. If you want to learn, I can teach you," Wang Lian said calmly. Hearing this, the lady in the black robe was extremely excited. "Thank you, Brother Lian." However, Wang Lian made a rather ridiculous request. He said, "The ultimate sword principle is easy for male sword cultivators to comprehend. However, it is somewhat difficult for female sword cultivators. This is because the yin qi in female sword cultivators is too strong. It will disperse the ultimate sword qi. If you really want to learn, you can only use the dual cultivation technique to balance the yin qi in your body," Wang Lian said. Chapter 38-48. Yi Ru was very tempted. After all, it was the legendary ultimate sword principle. The greatest dream of sword cultivators was to comprehend the ultimate sword principle and become a sword cultivator. She knew that Wang Lian's attainments in the sword principle had reached an unimaginable level. Moreover, he was the holy son of the Wang clan, one of the 4 holy lands of the demon-devouring clan. He had even comprehended a trace of the ultimate sword principle. This time, she and Wang Lian had received a mission to enter the Cliff of Death to search for the Ghost Emperor's ghost weapon. After receiving the news, they quickly sent it back to the Holy Land. Wang Lian looked at Yi Ru greedily, but she was very naive. She thought that Wang Lian really wanted to teach her. She was so excited that she didn't even know what to say. "Sister Ru, the ultimate sword Dao is extraordinary. With your current cultivation level, it's extremely difficult for you to comprehend it," Wang Lian said calmly. Immediately, A look of anxiety flashed across Yi Ru's face. Wang Lian continued, "Take off your clothes first. I'll check your body and bones to see if they can withstand the ultimate sword qi." Yi Ru's face instantly turned red. She couldn't help but take a few steps back. "Brother Lian." Yi Ru was confused. Why did she have to take off her clothes? In this wilderness, a man and a woman were alone. What was Wang Lian trying to do by asking her to take off her clothes? "Sister Ru, you know too little about the ultimate sword principle. I'm going to inject the ultimate sword qi into your body. Then you can use this opportunity to comprehend it. However, before that, I must ensure that your body and bones can withstand the foundation stage sword qi. Otherwise, once the ultimate sword qi explodes, you'll die instantly." Wang Lian stood with his hands behind his back. He said coldly, "If you don't agree, then forget it." "Brother Lian, Yi Ru wanted to say something but stopped. She was a little embarrassed. Wang Lian snorted and prepared to leave. Yi Ru nodded in a panic. "Brother Lian, don't be angry. I'm just a little shy. Give me some time to overcome my psychological barrier." Wang Lian's expression softened. He was secretly delighted. "Little girl, you want to fight with me?" He, Wang Lian, was the holy son of the Wang family's holy land. His status was noble. In his eyes, Yi Ru was just a slightly prettier girl. It was her honor to be able to teach her. Yi Ru struggled for a long time before finally overcoming the obstacles in her heart. Her hands trembled slightly as she unbuttoned her clothes and prepared to take them off. At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared in the void. Then, a vast amount of sword qi swooped down and ruthlessly smashed onto the mountain peak. The entire ground was trembling. Wang Lian and Yi Ru's bodies were also swaying. "Brother Lian." As she swayed, Yi Ru's body fell into Wang Lian's embrace. The latter took the opportunity to embrace her. At that moment, a figure gradually appeared from the crack in the sky, accompanied by the terrifying sword light. He approached from afar and landed on the mountain peak. Whoosh! Fang Chen looked around, then grinned and said, "We're finally out." Sword qi surged around Fang Chen. When Wang Lian saw this, his heart trembled, and a cold killing intent flashed in his eyes. He could sense that Fang Chen's cultivation level was not as high as his. "Sir," Wang Lian said, "Sister Ru and I were cultivating here, but you made such a big commotion to disturb us. What are your intentions?" The biggest taboo in martial cultivation was to be disturbed. Especially when Wang Lian was about to succeed and was disturbed by Fang Chen. This caused Yi Ru to hurriedly tidy up her clothes and take a few steps back to maintain a certain distance from him. This made Wang Lian very angry. Moreover, as a sword cultivator, he could sense the extraordinary sword qi on Fang Chen. His intuition told him that Fang Chen must have a very powerful sword technique. If he could obtain it, he might be able to truly comprehend the ultimate sword principle. He carefully searched his memories and did not recognize Fang Chen. He was also certain that Fang Chen was not from the 4 great holy lands. This meant that Fang Chen did not have any background. Even if he did, he could not be stronger than Wang Lian. In Wang Lian's eyes, such a person was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Therefore, he wanted to kill him. "Disturb your cultivation?" Fang Chen shrugged and looked at Wang Lian mockingly. He said, "You lusted after this lady's beauty and used the excuse of teaching her to comprehend the ultimate sword principle to seduce her step by step. You want to obtain her. Only the devouring demons clan can do such a despicable thing." Wang Lian was enraged. Although Fang Chen was right, it was embarrassing for him to say it in front of Yi Ru. Moreover, he heard the words devouring demons clan from Fang Chen. This proved that he was not from the devouring demons clan. "Damn you!" Wang Lian instantly exploded and attacked at lightning speed. He wanted to kill Fang Chen. Fang Chen shook his head and shook his wrist. The heaven-destroying sword instantly drew a strange trajectory. In the next moment, Wang Lian felt a shocking killing intent. He dodged without thinking. Crack! However, that was the heaven-destroying sword, the weapon used by Xuezhu Supreme. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the strongest weapon in the way of the sword. How could Wang Lian block it? No. No matter how Wang Lian dodged, he could not avoid it. The heaven-destroying sword seemed to have a mind of its own as it locked onto him. At this moment, Wang Lian felt a tinge of fear in his heart. He roared angrily and his body flickered continuously. He could feel that if he was hit by the heaven-destroying sword, he would be seriously injured, if not killed. Damn you, how did you get such a powerful weapon? At this moment, he did not have time to think too much. He only wanted to escape. At this moment, he saw Yi Ru, who was not far away. Crash. His body flashed and he appeared in front of Yi Ru at lightning speed. Before Yi Ru could say anything, he grabbed Yi Ru by the neck and threw her violently. Yi Ru's body flew out uncontrollably and collided with the heaven-destroying sword. Rip! Under the powerful attack of the heaven-destroying sword, Yi Ru died instantly. Wang Lian took advantage of this short period of time to escape at a speed that was not visible to the naked eye. Sigh. Fang Chen sighed. No matter who it was, when faced with a disaster, they would choose to flee separately. Yi Ru was a pitiful person. However, he did not feel the slightest bit of pity for the demon-devouring clan. If it were not for them, the Chaos World would not have ended up like that. He would not have had to take such great risks to reincarnate into the Origin World and save the people of the Chaos World. Swoosh! He flicked his finger and the heaven-destroying sword shot out with invincible sword chi. In an instant, it caught up with Wang Lian and pierced through his body. No, the Wang family sacred ground will not let you off. Wang Lian roared out his last sentence and his body fell limply to the ground. The Wang family? Fang Chen shook his head. When he transformed his perfect bloodline to the extreme and stepped into the chaotic supremacy realm, all the devouring demon clan in the Origin World would be destroyed. Chapter 3849. Romance Website. Killing Wang Lian was just a small interlude. After all, he had been training in the broken space for a few years. Now that he had appeared in an unfamiliar place, he naturally had to explore it. After all, this was the Cliff of Death. It was full of danger. The slightest carelessness could put his life in danger. I wonder where Senior Lung Xian is. Fang Chen muttered to himself. Back then, he was lucky to have met Lung Xian. That was how he was now. He had also obtained the sky-crushing sword, which had played a decisive role in his recovery. Most importantly, he had obtained more than 10,000 sword demons, which were his ultimate trump card. Brother! At this moment, a figure hurried over from the distant desert. It did not take long for him to land on the mountain peak. He looked at Fang Chen with a smile and said, "Brother, you've caused trouble." Fang Chen glanced at him coldly. The latter smiled and said, "That sword cultivator was called Wang Lian. He was the holy son of the Wang clan, one of the 4 great sacred grounds of the Origin World. He was the future hope of the Wang clan. The Wang clan used all the power of the entire sacred ground to produce such a genius, but you killed him. Do you think the Wang clan's sacred ground will let you off? The holy son of the sacred ground?" Fang Chen snorted. If Wang Lian could only reach this level after absorbing all the resources of the Wang clan's sacred ground, then his talent was really poor. "Brother, this is the Cliff of Death. No one will know that you killed Wang Lian, but I happened to pass by and saw it, so, after talking for so long, Fang Chen realized that this guy was actually here to blackmail him. He looked up and sized up this person seriously. He was curious. What was he thinking? Was he trying to blackmail him? He had killed Wang Lian with a single strike. Was he so confident that he was stronger than Wang Lian? "Brother, I'll tell you the truth. Although I'm not as strong as Wang Lian, my ability to escape is unrivaled among the younger generation. Even a pinnacle saint may not be able to kill me. So, it's best that you don't kill me. Otherwise, once I escape, the consequences will be unimaginable." As long as Fang Chen made a move on him, he would inform the Wang family's sacred land of the news. At that time, Fang Chen would have to suffer the wrath of the Wang family's sacred land. He believed that Fang Chen did not dare to gamble. "Fast!" Fang Chen said calmly. "Give me that sword of yours, and this matter will end here. I didn't see anything, and you didn't do anything. If you don't believe me, I can make a martial oath, the person said seriously. His name was Wu Feng, and he was known as the Son of Wind. His speed was extremely fast, and no one below the pinnacle saint could catch up to him. This was the source of his confidence. With his super-fast speed, he had extorted others more than once. "What if I don't?" Fang Chen said, a trace of cold killing intent flashing in his eyes. "Think carefully before you make a decision. I hope you don't make a mistake. The death of the holy son of the Wang family's sacred land is not a small matter. If the Wang family's sacred land knows about this, they will definitely overturn the entire death cliff to find you." Wu Feng threatened. "Moreover, it won't be just you. The clan behind you, and everyone who has been in contact with you will die." Fang Chen shook his head. "If I kill you, the news will naturally not spread." "Humph, you want to kill me?" Wu Feng sneered. "It seems that you don't understand the speed of the Son of Wind. In that case, I'll let you experience it." As his voice fell, Wu Feng's figure disappeared instantly. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in the distant sky. Then, a white light flashed and he returned to the mountain peak. "How is it? Have you made your decision?" Wu Feng raised his head arrogantly, waiting for Fang Chen to make a decision. He had just seen with his own eyes how Fang Chen used the sky-destroying sword to kill Wang Lian. That aura had shocked him. He swore that he would definitely obtain the sky-destroying sword. Fang Chen nodded. His decision had never changed. "Hand over the sword." Wu Feng stretched out his hand. However, what welcomed him was a sharp sword light. With a crack, his hand was cut off by the sky-destroying sword. He screamed in pain, his anger soaring to the sky. You're dead meat." Wu Feng said viciously, "No one in this world can save you." Of course, he wouldn't foolishly fight with Fang Chen. Instead, he used his strongest movement technique to escape this place. He wanted to inform the Wang family's sacred land of the news and use the Wang family's sacred land to kill Fang Chen. Swoosh! The sky-destroying sword was fully activated, and the ultimate sword Dao erupted once again. At this moment, Fang Chen was like a god of death from hell, crushing Wu Feng with an unstoppable momentum. Wu Feng relied on his incomparably fast speed to escape quickly. However, before he could escape far, he was forced back by a sharp and domineering sword chi. He changed his direction and continued to escape. However, it was useless. No matter where he appeared, there would be sharp and domineering sword chi that forced him back. In the end, these sword chi crisscrossed and merged together, forming a void cage that trapped him within. Boom! He was a little anxious. He used all his strength to attack the void cage, but it was to no avail. At this moment, he finally realized that something was wrong. What's going on? He was filled with doubts. How could the speed of Fang Chen's sword light catch up to his movement technique? What was going on? He had dominated the origin world for so many years and had never failed. How did you? When he saw Fang Chen appear in the void cage with the sky-destroying sword in his hand, Wu Feng exclaimed in surprise. Fang Chen snorted and said disdainfully, "Your so-called movement technique is trash in front of me." Indeed, in his previous life, Fang Chen was known for his speed. In this life, he had obtained the sky-destroying sword and comprehended the ultimate sword Dao. With one strike, a domain appeared. In his sword Dao domain, how could Wu Feng escape? "No, let me go. What I said before, can you just treat it as a fart?" Wu Feng felt fear and hurriedly begged for mercy. "Let you go?" Fang Chen sneered. "Didn't you want to tell the Wang family's sacred ground that I killed Wang Lian?" Wu Feng shook his head desperately and said, "No, I didn't see anything." "You didn't do anything. As long as you are willing to let me go, I will do anything." Fang Chen held the sky-destroying sword and walked step by step toward Wu Feng. Wu Feng was shocked to find that his body could not move. No, a miserable cry came from his mouth. In the next moment, the sky-destroying sword pierced through his head. His eyes widened as he fell limply to the ground. He died with his eyes wide open. He would never know how a saint-level ancient martial art practitioner could actually surpass him in speed. The ultimate sword Dao formed its own domain. The so-called Son of the Wind, Wu Feng, was just a joke. He dared to blackmail Fang Chen and paid with his life in the end. He reaped what he sowed. Chapter 3850. The reason why the ultimate sword principle was called ultimate was because it was the pinnacle of a sword principle. If one wanted to go further, they would have to merge many ultimate sword principles together to form the ultimate sword principle. However, for countless eras, the ultimate sword principle had never appeared. Even Supreme Master Fu Jian and Supreme Master Xue Zhu, who were sword cultivators, had never touched the threshold of the ultimate sword principle. As for Fang Chen, he was still far from it. He had comprehended the ultimate sword principle because of his invincible sword principle. It was all thanks to the heaven-destroying sword. Otherwise, with his cultivation, he would not have been able to form the ultimate sword principle. Although his cultivation had not fully recovered to the peak of his previous life, with the heaven-destroying sword in hand, he was basically invincible against anyone below the ultimate saint level. Even if he encountered an ultimate saint, he was confident that he could fight him. The son of the wind, Wu Feng, was at most a slightly stronger saint. How dare he blackmail Fang Chen? He was courting death. Perhaps, even until his death, he did not know just how powerful an enemy he had provoked. Unfortunately, Fang Chen would never give him the chance to know. Fang Chen was about to leave after killing the son of the wind, Wu Feng. But at that moment, he felt the ground shake as if there was a beast tide coming. A beast tide? Fang Chen frowned and looked into the distance. He suddenly realized that sand was rolling up in the barren desert. Boundless power surged toward him. His primordial spirit, which was close to the Tao manifestation realm, immediately saw the demonic beasts in the sand. There were about 100 demonic beasts. Each of them contained a ferocious aura. Fang Chen's eyelids twitched and his body trembled. These are ferocious beasts. The legendary primordial ferocious beasts had really appeared and were right in front of him. The primordial ferocious beasts were the legendary kings of all demons. It was said that when the chaotic void was still in an unknown state, the primordial ferocious beasts were born. The difference between them and the primordial divine beasts was that the divine beasts had a divine aura. They were born to save the world. However, ancient ferocious beasts were different. They were born to destroy and kill. Their blood contained a murderous aura. They were ferocious by nature, and wherever they went, nothing would grow. They were the natural enemies of the ancient divine beasts. Something's not right. Fang Chen realized that these ancient ferocious beasts were different from the rumors. He observed them carefully and soon realized that something was amiss. Descendant of an ancient beast. That made sense. Ancient ferocious beasts were just like ancient divine beasts. They were extremely rare. It was said that there were only 9 ancient ferocious beasts in the world. As time passed, almost all of the ancient ferocious beasts died in battle during the dark turmoil. Now, more than 100 ancient ferocious beasts had appeared at the same time. Clearly, they were not the original 9 great ferocious beasts, but their descendants. Even if he was a descendant of a dire beast, it was enough to make Fang Chen take him seriously. Rumble. More than 100 descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts roared angrily and rushed toward Fang Chen. Everywhere they passed, yellow sand billowed. Seeing this, Fang Chen held the sky-destroying sword in his hand and dared not be careless. Could it be that when I killed Wu Feng, I alarmed the descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts? Fang Chen could not understand why more than 100 ferocious beasts suddenly appeared. Roar. When the first ancient ferocious beast rushed toward Fang Chen, the sky-destroying sword in his hand had already finished accumulating power. He swung the sword and the terrifying sky-destroying sword directly pierced through the head of the descendant of the ancient ferocious beast. Its body exploded and instantly turned into ashes. Roar. This scene made the other descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts completely furious. They went into a frenzy and rushed over crazily. At this moment, Fang Chen vaguely saw a figure standing on the head of the last descendant of the ancient ferocious beasts. That is, Fang Chen was shocked and his eyes darted around. He guessed that the hundreds of descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts were controlled by the figure. When he thought of this, his heart throbbed. A martial artist could actually control more than 100 descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts. Could he be a beast tamer? Let's go. Fang Chen had no other choice. His body flashed and he immediately retreated. He was ready to escape from this place. If they were ordinary descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts, he would have a chance to fight them. However, there was a mysterious beast tamer controlling more than 100 descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts to attack him. This meant that he was in danger. Therefore, he had to escape as quickly as possible. Kill. The figure on the head of the descendant of the ancient ferocious beasts opened his mouth and softly uttered a word. Immediately, more than 100 descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts rushed toward Fang Chen in a frenzy. Swoosh. As he retreated, he activated his ultimate sword principle. The sky-crushing sword in his hand carried an indestructible sword chi as it continuously attacked the descendant of the ancient ferocious beasts. Although there was no danger for the time being, Fang Chen knew that continuously activating the ultimate sword principle at such a high intensity would consume his energy quickly. If this dragged on, he would definitely be exhausted. I can't drag this out. Fang Chenhai's mind raced. When he sensed danger approaching, the vermilion bird bloodline hidden in his body instantly erupted. This was the repelling effect that came from the natural enemy. The vermilion bird bloodline came from the ancient divine beast, the vermilion bird. Although the bloodline in Fang Chen's body was extremely thin, it was still the genuine vermilion bird bloodline. Boom! The vermilion bird bloodline activated and a layer of bloody light enveloped Fang Chen's body. In an instant, an unparalleled pressure was generated. This pressure swept through the heavens and the earth like a supersonic wave that attacked the descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts. Roar. Angry roars came from the mouths of the descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts. The blood in their bodies was greatly restricted, causing them to be unable to fully activate their power. Moreover, they felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. This was a throbbing that came from the depths of their bloodline. Seeing this, Fang Chen's heart skipped a beat. He just remembered that he had the vermilion bird bloodline. He fully immersed himself in releasing the vermilion bird bloodline, forcing the hundreds of descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts to stop in their tracks. They fell into a state of panic. The mysterious beast tamer on the head of the leader of the ancient ferocious beasts exclaimed, "The vermilion bird bloodline? This is the vermilion bird bloodline?" Obviously, even he did not expect to meet a martial artist with the vermilion bird bloodline here. Moreover, he could clearly feel that this person's vermilion bird bloodline was very concentrated. The vermilion bird bloodline he released forced the hundreds of descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts to not move. This was the suppression that came from the deepest part of their bloodline. From this point, it could be seen that the concentration of the vermilion bird bloodline in Fang Chen's body was much higher than that of the hundreds of descendants of the ancient ferocious beasts. Otherwise, there would not be such a suppression. The mysterious beast tamer licked his dry lips and smiled eerily. The vermilion bird bloodline? Perfect for an experiment. Chapter 3851. Although the blood concentration of the descendants of ancient beasts was thin, they were not to be underestimated. After all, it was the legendary bloodline of ancient beasts. It was comparable to the bloodline of ancient divine beasts. At this moment, Fang Chen activated the bloodline of the vermilion bird, which attracted the attention of the mysterious beast tamer. His eyes shone with a shocking light. As a beast tamer who controlled hundreds of descendants of ancient beasts, he naturally knew better than anyone how powerful the bloodline of ancient beasts was. If he could obtain the bloodline of the vermilion bird and merge the two bloodlines, it would transform into an even more terrifying bloodline. It might even give birth to the primal chaos bloodline. Of course, this was just a guess. Even he was not sure. But even if there was only a slight possibility, he still had to pursue it. Huff, huff, huff. The mysterious beast tamer took out a bamboo flute from his sleeve and placed it next to his mouth. A melodious sound came from the bamboo flute. Suddenly, over 100 ferocious beasts charged at Fang Chen as if they had gone crazy. Not good. Fang Chen knew that things were not good. He jumped and escaped. In terms of speed, almost no one in the same realm could compare. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. HMPH, you can't escape. The mysterious beast tamer sneered. He controlled hundreds of descendants of ancient beasts and chased after Fang Chen. Fang Chen's speed was getting faster and faster, constantly shuttling through the void. As time passed, he felt that the descendants of ancient beasts were getting closer and closer to him. He knew very well that once he was caught, he would definitely die. Moreover, in addition to the hundreds of ancient beasts, there was also the mysterious beast tamer. He could control so many descendants of ancient beasts. He was definitely not an ordinary person. He turned his head to take a look, only to see a black mass rushing toward him. Then, he increased his speed. After passing through a mountain range, he sensed a sinister and terrifying aura rushing toward him. In an instant, he felt that his primordial spirit was about to be frozen. He shivered and his body was on the verge of collapse. But soon, his primordial spirit that was close to the Tao manifestation level emitted a weak light, waking him up. Then, he controlled his body and continued to move forward. After passing through the mountain range, he saw a river that stretched as far as the eye could see. So cold. When he approached the river, even his essence spirit, which was close to the Tao manifestation realm, felt like it was about to be frozen. He looked at the river in fear. What kind of river was this? Why was it emitting such a terrifying ice-cold force? Roar. The descendants of the ancient mythological beasts let out angry roars as they chased after him. They seemed to have also sensed the terrifying power of the river and instantly stopped in their tracks, opening up a path for him. The leader of the descendants of the murderers carried the mysterious beast tamer to the front of the river and stared at Fang Chen. "Who are you?" The mysterious beast tamer was the first to speak. His voice was extremely heavy, as if he was born with a sense of superiority. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and the corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a faint smile. "And who are you?" asked Fang Chen. They had never met before, but as soon as they did, the man wanted his life. Fang Chen didn't have a good impression of him. "You're a human, but you have the bloodline of the ancient mythological beast vermilion bird, and it's very concentrated. I'm very curious as to how you did it," said the mysterious beast tamer indifferently. Fang Chen was silent as he stared at the mysterious beast tamer. The latter seemed to have seen through his thoughts and sneered, "Don't think about running away. Ever since I was born, I've never failed to get anything I've set my eyes on. I'm very interested in the vermilion bird bloodline in you. If you're willing, you can become my servant and let me strip the vermilion bird bloodline from your bloodline. This way, you can still follow me and continue to live. You should know that this is your only chance to live." The mysterious beast tamer looked coldly at Fang Chen, as if everything was under his control. "Strip my bloodline and make me your servant." Fang Chen sneered. He shouldered the heavy responsibility of saving the chaotic world. How could he be willing to become someone else's lackey? He seemed to feel that although the mysterious beast tamer was powerful, he seemed to be wary of the river. "You can take it as your glory," said the mysterious beast tamer. The mysterious beast tamer said, "Throughout the long years, only this mount of mine was fortunate enough to become my servant. As for you, you are the second. Even the other hundreds of descendants of the ancient beasts weren't qualified to be his servant. He only had one servant, the leader of the descendants of the ancient beasts. It was as if being his servant was a very impressive thing." "Glory?" Fang Chen looked calm. At this point, there was no use in being anxious. He could only take one step at a time. If there was no other way, he would jump into the river. He bet that the mysterious beast tamer wouldn't dare to enter. However, he felt a little bitter. It wasn't easy for him to grow up in the broken space and obtain the Sky Destroyer sword. He swept through the broken space and recovered his strength. He didn't expect to meet such a mysterious beast tamer as soon as he came out. However, looking back at his life, from his humble beginnings until now, he had never had a smooth journey. His path had always been bumpy. What kind of storm had he not seen before? Could a mere beast tamer do anything to him? He shrugged and said, "I don't want your so-called glory." Boom. The mysterious beast tamer clenched his fists and his bones cracked. The hundreds of descendants of the ancient beasts behind him roared in anger. "You know nothing about my strength." In the heavy atmosphere, The mysterious beast tamer suddenly loosened his fists and said, "I don't blame you. After all, you don't know how destructive a top expert can be. In this world, the strong are respected. Whoever has the biggest fist has the last word. Since you don't want to be my servant, I will use my fist to do the talking." The mysterious beast tamer said, "However, when my fist defeats you, you are no longer qualified to be my servant." He pointed at the descendants of the ancient beasts behind him and said coldly, "At that time, you will lose your mind like them and become a walking corpse. I will personally extract your primordial spirit and refine it." Killing intent surged from Fang Chen's body. He had never seen such an arrogant person before. "Kill!" The mysterious beast tamer roared furiously. Over 100 descendants of ancient ferocious beasts instantly went berserk. He personally made a move, wanting to suppress Fang Chen. However, the latter was already prepared. Facing the terrifying power that covered the sky and earth, he did not even turn his head. He directly took a step forward and jumped into the river. "You are courting death." The mysterious beast tamer's face was ferocious. He didn't expect Fang Chen to really jump into the Soul River. That was the Soul River, a place that even he didn't dare to set foot in. Chapter 3852. Soul River. In the long river of time, no one dared to enter the Soul River, and no one dared to explore the Soul River. Since ancient times, countless people had died in the Soul River. As time passed, the Soul River became a taboo. Even the demon devourer race, the strongest race in the world, didn't dare to step into the Soul River. The mysterious beast tamer stood with his hands behind his back, sitting on the back of the leader of the ancient beasts. His black eyes stared at the Soul River in silence. That was the Soul River. He still wanted to live, so he didn't dare to approach it. However, Fang Chen, who had the bloodline of the vermilion bird, jumped in directly. Damn it! The mysterious beast tamer clenched his fists. He would rather die than hand over the bloodline of the vermilion bird. His plan had failed, and he was furious. HMPH. After a long time, he snorted and led the army away from the Soul River. Inside the Soul River, an extremely cold energy swept through his body. The moment Fang Chen jumped in, he felt his heart trembling. The energy left in his heart by the Sky Dragon Supreme suddenly erupted and shrouded his body. If there were outsiders here, they would definitely be shocked. The water of the Soul River couldn't get close to his body. At this moment, at the bottom of the Soul River, there were two beautiful figures. After Fang Chen stabilized his body, he felt the bloodline of the vermilion bird flowing into his heart, fusing with the power of the Sky Dragon Supreme and protecting him. What is this place? Even if his Yuan spirit was close to the Tao manifestation realm, he could still feel fear. If it wasn't for the power of the Sky Dragon Supreme and the protection of the bloodline of the ancient vermilion bird, he would have exploded and died. Splash! Because of his arrival, the calm Soul River started to ripple. He was pushed to the bottom of the Soul River by the huge wave, and he saw a trace of light. Is there something shining? Fang Chen moved forward slowly. After a while, he went around the huge reef and saw a shocking scene. That was, a cold figure was sitting cross-legged at the bottom of the Soul River, motionless. Her eyelashes were drooping, and her eyes were closed. She wasn't even breathing. She just sat there quietly, and it was incomparably alluring. Senior Leng Xian. Fang Chen cried out in alarm. Why was Leng Xian here? He quickly flew towards Leng Xian's direction. However, the closer he got to Leng Xian, the more he was shocked to discover that there was a terrifying repulsive force preventing him from moving forward. What's going on? Fang Chen could not figure it out. However, just as he was feeling extremely anxious, he discovered that Leng Xian's fair fingers were trembling slightly. Senior Leng Xian is not dead. He sensed Leng Xian's abnormality. Although he couldn't sense any aura, as if she was a living dead, he saw Leng Xian's fingers trembling, as if she was giving him directions. At this moment, he no longer had the time to ponder why Leng Xian would be in such a terrifying place. Instead, he followed Leng Xian's finger and continued to advance in a certain direction. That is, after taking a few steps, he was stunned. A familiar face appeared before his eyes. It was Princess Phoenix who had once fought alongside him. Why is she here? Fang Chen was completely stunned. If Senior Lungxian was here, it could be explained that she was cultivating and transforming. But what about Princess Huang? Princess Huang! Fang Chen called out loudly. Princess Huang had her eyes closed and her breathing was even, as though she didn't hear Fang Chen's call. After that, he took a large step forward and came before Princess Huang. He stretched out his hand and pushed lightly. A moment later, Princess Huang's eyelashes twitched as she opened her eyes. Who are you? Sensing the approach of a stranger, Princess Huang's expression instantly turned gloomy. The energy in her body directly erupted forth as she glared at Fang Chen in anger. You don't recognize me? Fang Chen was astonished. Could it be that Princess Huang had lost her memories? Princess Huang shook her head. Her attitude towards Fang Chen was extremely cold. She hated it when strange men got close to her. In fact, she even felt a trace of killing intent towards Fang Chen. Where is this place? Fang Chen asked. He suspected that it was this place that caused Princess Huang to temporarily lose her memories. Hence, he had to figure out where this place was before he could plan his next step. Also, he recalled that Senior Lungxian gave him directions earlier. She clearly wanted him to find Princess Huang. What was going on exactly? Soul River. Princess Huang said coldly. What? Fang Chen's jaw almost dropped. This was actually the legendary Soul River. In his mind, before he reincarnated, at the end of the Primal Chaos World's reincarnation path, the words of the Sovereign appeared. He once said that the most dangerous place in the origin world was the Soul River. Once he encountered it, he had to leave as far as possible. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome if he got involved with the Soul River. Soul River? Fang Chen was shocked as he stared at Princess Huang. Since this was the Soul River, then how did Princess Huang survive? Could it be because of Senior Lungxian's protection? Or was it because of the powerful methods of the primitive races? He shook his head forcefully. He felt like he was dreaming. Not only did he enter the Soul River, he even reached the bottom of the Soul River. If people in the outside world were to know about this, they would definitely think that he was crazy. Right now, Fang Chen was very glad that he actually made it through. It was all thanks to the power of the Sky Dragon Sovereign's heart and the heaven-defying bloodline of the ancient divine beast, the vermilion bird, that he was able to come here unscathed. Who? Fang Chen took a deep breath and suppressed the calmness in his heart. His gaze once again fell on Princess Huang. In the Soul River, Princess Huang's peerless appearance was reflected. Her fair cheeks carried some coldness. She wore a white dress that perfectly outlined her impressive figure. At the very least, Fang Chen had seen countless beautiful women in his 2 lives. Princess Huang's appearance could be ranked in the top 3. Her coldness was very special. Why did you come here? Fang Chen couldn't help but ask. This was the question he was most puzzled about. Back then, he was chased by the Ghost Manor Lord and fell into a spatial storm. He almost died. By chance, he came to the Death Cliff. Then, he met Senior Lungxian and was thrown into a shattered space to temper himself. He didn't expect that not long after he came out, he would be chased by a mysterious beast tamer. Helpless, he jumped into the Soul River. Who would have thought that Princess Huang actually came to the Soul River before him? Could it be that Princess Huang was also chased and had no choice but to jump into the Soul River? Or could it be that the primitive races had long expected that he would enter the Soul River and let Princess Huang come here first to wait for him? However, this was only his guess. He turned his head and looked at Lungxian, who was like a living corpse. His heart was filled with doubts. First, he could confirm that Senior Lungxian wasn't dead. Although she wasn't breathing, she was surviving in the Soul River in a special way. As for what kind of method, Fang Chen couldn't understand it. Secondly, Senior Lungxian guided him to find Princess Huang. What was the meaning of this? Chapter 3853. Princess Huang had temporarily lost her memory, forgetting everything that happened in the past. She didn't even recognize herself. She treated herself as an enemy and her eyes were filled with vigilance. At the same time, a layer of grayish ripples surrounded her body. It was these ripples that blocked the corrosion of the Soul River. You don't remember me? Fang Chen asked. He was puzzled. Why was Senior Langxian in the Soul River and Princess Huang here? One must know. This was the Soul River. Even a half-step chaotic supreme wouldn't dare to step into this place. If he wasn't forced by the mysterious beast tamer, he wouldn't have jumped into the Soul River. Buzz. Hearing Fang Chen's words, a trace of doubt appeared on Princess Huang's calm face. Her red lips parted slightly as she asked, "Should I know you?" Fang Chen shrugged his shoulders. Soon after, he briefly explained the matter between him and Princess Huang. However, to his surprise, the latter didn't reveal any expression. Instead, she shook her head gently. Catcher. At this moment, Fang Chen suddenly heard a crisp sound. Following that, he discovered that there seemed to be a whirlpool beneath Princess Huang's feet. The terrifying whirlpool released a terrifying power. Not good. Fang Chen exclaimed in his heart. However, it was too late. Princess Huang had already been drawn into the whirlpool. In the blink of an eye, she was swallowed by the whirlpool. After that, the whirlpool disappeared and the Soul River returned to its calm state. What's going on? Fang Chen was filled with worry. Where did the whirlpool in the Soul River bring Princess Huang to? He tried his best to calm his heart and turned to look at Langxian. The current Langxian wasn't breathing, but Fang Chen could sense that she wasn't dead. She was just living in another way. Buzz. On Langxian's forehead, there was a dazzling radiance. Layers of ripples spread out from her forehead, passing through the Soul River and covering Fang Chen's body. The latter's body jolted. Only then did he realize that it was a layer of protection. He was touched. Even if Senior Langxian had become a zombie, she was still protecting him. Senior Langxian, don't worry. I will definitely think of a way to save you. He was now deep in the Soul River, and it was difficult to find a way out. He believed that Senior Langxian must have been suppressed by some kind of power in the Soul River, which was why he was acting like a living dead. Hiss hiss hiss. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt an immense pressure on his body. He looked down and realized that he had reached the deepest part of the Soul River in the blink of an eye. What happened? He realized that all of this was because of the protective layer on his body. It was forcefully pulling him to a deeper place. Where is Senior Langxian sending me? He realized that this should be the work of Senior Langxian. He simply stopped struggling and allowed the protective layer on his body to pull at him. After a while, he felt as if he was passing through a realm wall. When he felt a ray of light, he suddenly opened his eyes. This was an underwater palace, and the entire palace was made of luminous pearls. The surroundings were protected by a great formation, and the mixed water couldn't get close. Senior Langxian sent me here. What is the meaning of this? Fang Chen was stunned. The Soul River was a place that made countless experts tremble in fear. However, there was a palace under the Soul River. What kind of palace was this? Or rather, who built this palace? Suddenly, a bold idea surfaced in Fang Chen's mind. Could this palace be related to the primitive tribes? Otherwise, when Princess Huang was swallowed by the whirlpool, Senior Langxian didn't stop her. Moreover, when Princess Huang just disappeared, Senior Langxian used his last bit of strength to send him here. If there was anyone in this world who wasn't afraid of the Soul River, then the primitive tribes would definitely be the first. After all, they were a tribe born from nature. Their strength was unimaginable. Building a palace under the Soul River was something that the primitive tribes could do. Phew. Fang Chen's breathing was a little hurried. If his guess was true, then the question was, why would the primitive tribes build a palace under the Soul River, and why would they send Princess Huang here? He tiptoed to the entrance of the palace. He stretched out his palm and gently pressed on the door. With a creak, the door opened automatically. This made him a little stunned. He took a step forward and stepped into the palace. The scene that entered his eyes completely stunned him. Princess Huang, who was swallowed by the whirlpool in the Soul River, was actually sitting in the center of the palace. No, to be precise, it should be a statue. The white jade statue sat perfectly in the center of the palace. Moreover, its appearance was exactly the same as Princess Huang. What's going on? Fang Chen cried out involuntarily. Why would there be a statue of Princess Huang in the palace under the Soul River? His first reaction was that the owner of this white jade statue shouldn't be Princess Huang. It might be someone related to Princess Huang. Once, he had asked Princess Huang before. Although the latter was related to the primitive tribes, she wasn't a member of the primitive tribes. It was only because her master was a member of the primitive tribes. But now, Fang Chen was more and more certain that Princess Huang definitely had a deeper relationship with the primitive tribes. Maybe this palace under the Soul River was where the mystery of Princess Huang's origins lay. Could it be that the owner of this white jade statue is Princess Huang's mother or ancestor? Fang Chen's eyes turned as he pondered in his mind. He walked step by step towards Bai Yu's statue. Suddenly, he felt a strong resistance. The perfect bloodline in his body suddenly erupted, enveloping his entire body, resisting the terrifying repulsive force from Bai Yu's statue. At the same time, the vermilion bird bloodline was also released. It engulfed the entire palace, forcefully suppressing the powerful corrosive force in the air. Bai Yu's statue is rejecting me. Fang Chen was even more puzzled. What was going on? What was the purpose of Senior Langxian sending him here? Where did Princess Huang go? Was she also sent into the palace by the whirlpool? Or was she in the palace, accepting the inheritance of the primitive tribes? Hence, Bai Yu's statue stopped him, afraid that he would destroy her inheritance. Of course, all of this was his own guess. If he wanted to verify it, he had to investigate everything. And all of these doubts started from Bai Yu's statue. Buzz. He felt that the perfect bloodline had a great suppressive effect on the repulsive force of Bai Yu's statue. He borrowed the power of his bloodline and gradually approached Bai Yu's statue, wanting to find out the truth. Boom. His heart was beating faster, and all the meridians in his body were starting to stiffen. His eyes were bloodshot, as if his emotions were greatly affected. His entire body's movements became sluggish. This was Fang Chen's current state. Chapter 3854. Under the Soul River, in the center of the palace. The white jade statue stood there for a long time. The carvings were exquisite and lifelike. At that moment, Fang Chen was walking towards the white jade statue in a state that bordered on insanity. With every step he took, he felt extremely troubled. It was as if there was a mountain pressing down on him, making it difficult for him to move forward. His breathing was rapid and his heart was beating faster. The meridians in his body were extremely stiff and his eyes were red. He seemed to have fallen into a state of madness and gradually lost his mind. He staggered forward like a walking corpse. Buzz. Around the white jade statue, layers of grey halos suddenly appeared. As soon as these grey halos appeared, they immediately suppressed Fang Chen's perfect bloodline and tried to absorb his vermilion bird bloodline. Dong. Fang Chen was stunned and in the next moment, he completely lost consciousness. In the next instant, Fang Chen looked around and realized that he had appeared in an empty space. His surroundings were completely sealed, and he couldn't leave at all. He attacked the seal frantically, but it was useless. The seal was too strong, and he couldn't do anything. Phew. After 3 days and 3 nights of continuous bombardment, the energy in his body was finally exhausted. His forehead was covered with beads of sweat as he sat down on the ground. He raised his head and stared at the empty space. He did not understand why he was sealed here. Could it be, in his body, the perfect bloodline suddenly fluctuated? Fang Chen instantly understood that he had fallen into a dream. Dong. At this moment, a puppet fighter suddenly appeared in the void space. As soon as the puppet fighter appeared, it launched a fierce and overbearing attack on Fang Chen. Every attack was aimed at Fang Chen's Achilles heel. It used the most fatal force to attack Fang Chen. Bang! After a few minutes, Fang Chen was defeated. The puppet fighter glanced at him and found a place to sit down. It seemed that Fang Chen had to defeat it to leave this void space. Is this a training in a dream? Fang Chen muttered to himself. He had experienced this many times but he couldn't understand what was hidden in the white jade statue. Why did he fall into a dream? Could it be that all of this was related to Princess Huang? His heart was filled with countless doubts. From the information he had obtained, Princess Huang's identity was very mysterious. She was definitely not as simple as she seemed on the surface. In fact, Fang Chen even suspected that Princess Phoenix was a member of one of the primordial races. The blood of the primordial races flowed through her veins. Otherwise, why would the primordial races send her to look for him and explore the location of the heavenly dragon sovereign's heart? After that, they even fought side by side, going through life and death situations, almost dying in the ghost man's territory. The past was vivid in his mind, but Fang Chen shook his head forcefully. He knew that the most important thing now was to solve the problem in front of him. If he was trapped in the dream, his real body would be in danger. After all, no one knew exactly what sort of dangers existed in that palace. That was a palace under the Soul River. To be able to build a palace in such a dangerous place, one could imagine how powerful the owner of the palace was. Whoosh! Thinking of this, Fang Chen quickly adjusted his mentality, stood up again, and walked to the front of the war puppet. Boom! Seeing this, the war puppet stood up and tangled with Fang Chen again. With the previous experience, Fang Chen threw himself into the battle. Soon, he found the war puppet's fatal weakness and defeated it in one fell swoop. Boom! The war puppet exploded and dissipated into the void. Seeing this, Fang Chen grinned. Since the war puppet had been defeated, it was time for him to go back, right? However, the next scene almost drove him crazy. This was because a new war puppet had appeared in front of him. The strength of this war puppet was much stronger than the previous one. Fang Chen curled his lips. He felt helpless, but there was no better way at the moment. He could only continue to fight the enemy. What he did not expect was that the war puppet seemed to be endless. After defeating one, a new war puppet would appear immediately. In this way, he had been fighting with the war puppet for more than 3 months. Bang! This was already the 10th war puppet that he had defeated. In the later stages, every new war puppet was very powerful. It was too difficult to deal with them, so his speed was greatly reduced. However, the smile on his face gradually froze. This was because a new war puppet had appeared again. When will it end? Fang Chen was confused. Was he going to be trapped in the dream realm for the rest of his life? In the core of the forbidden zone of life in the origin world. In front of a lush mountain stream, White Ape suddenly appeared. He bowed deeply to the stream, his face full of respect. How is it? A deep voice suddenly came from the empty mountain stream. White Ape was startled, and then he quickly reported, according to the information we received, Fang Chen and Phoenix seem to have entered the Cliff of Death. Some time ago, we were still able to grasp Phoenix's specific location, but there was an accident halfway. Phoenix was being hunted down, so she had no choice but to jump into the Soul River. When White Ape heard the words Soul River, he could clearly feel that the pressure around the mountain stream suddenly increased. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, and the mountain stream gradually calmed down. The deep voice came again. Phoenix entered the Soul River? There was a trace of seriousness in the voice. What about Fang Chen? Fang Chen met Leng Xian, who sent him into the shattered space to train. Not long ago, his combat strength increased and he unified the shattered space. Unfortunately, after he came out, he encountered the beast tamer, and then he fled into the Soul River. The 2 people that the primitive clans were concerned about had entered the Soul River. Suddenly, the atmosphere in front of the mountain stream froze. That person did not speak, and White Ape did not dare to speak either. He bowed and waited for the person's order. After a long time, the Soul River is very special. Ordinary people will definitely die if they enter, but Phoenix should be fine, and there will be a great opportunity. I just don't know if she can grasp it. If she could grasp it, then she would soar to the sky. If she could not grasp it, then only death would await her. Continue to pay attention to every movement of the Soul River and the whereabouts of the beast tamer. After that, the mountain stream calmed down again. White Ape bowed deeply, then got up and left the core of the forbidden zone. He had a complicated expression. That was the Soul River. How could Fang Chen resist it? Just because of the perfect bloodline in his body. Sigh, I don't know what that person is thinking. White Ape shook his head. He could not figure out what that person was thinking, nor did he dare to guess. The entire White Ape clan was a subsidiary clan of the primitive clans. If he offended the primitive clans because of him, then the White Ape clan would be completely destroyed. He would be the eternal sinner of the White Ape clan. Chapter 38:55. If the 100 reincarnations that Fang Chen had experienced in the past were a kind of blissful cultivation, then being trapped in the dream realm this time was a painful memory. At this moment, Fang Chen was about to go crazy in the sealed void battlefield. It hadn't been long since he came out of the broken space and he was already trapped in the dream. In the past, he would laugh every time he defeated a puppet fighter, but now he was numb. You would never know how many puppet fighters there were in the void battlefield. In short, Fang Chen couldn't remember clearly. He was now like a walking corpse, fighting with the puppet fighters. As time passed, the strength of the puppet fighters became stronger and stronger. In the end, Fang Chen couldn't handle it anymore. It took him more than 3 months to defeat a puppet fighter. Phew! Sitting on the ground, Fang Chen was sweating profusely. He had been trapped in the dream for 10 years. Although the battle with the puppet fighters had greatly increased his combat experience, it was too boring to be in the same place and repeat the same thing. When can I get out? Fang Chen couldn't help but curse. He seriously recalled what he had experienced before. First of all the doubts were related to Senior Lungxian. Why did she enter the Soul River? Why did she become a living corpse? Logically speaking, there were only 2 situations when one entered the Soul River. The first was complete death. The second was to rely on a secret technique to resist the invasion of the Soul River and survive. However, Senior Lungxian became a living corpse and guided him to Princess Huang. For some reason, the latter also entered the Soul River and lost her memory. This drove Fang Chen crazy. Who built the palace under the Soul River? Could it be a primitive tribe? Fang Chen shook his head and rejected this idea. If it was built by a primitive tribe, then what was the statue in the middle of the palace? With the status of a primitive tribe, it was impossible for them to build a white jade statue for no reason. Unless the owner of this white jade statue was a leader of the primitive tribe. However, this white jade statue looked exactly the same as Princess Huang. Moreover, Princess Huang was sucked away by the whirlpool under the Soul River. As for himself, he was also sucked into the palace. What he was sure of was that Princess Huang was definitely in the palace. Maybe the white jade statue in the center of the palace was her mother or her ancestor. She came here to accept the inheritance. Dong. At this moment, a new puppet fighter gradually took shape. Fang Chen heaved a sigh and got up to continue fighting. Again and again, his understanding of the ultimate sword Dao had reached a whole new level, and the strength of the puppet fighters had also become stronger. Time passed. 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. In the blink of an eye, Fang Chen had been trapped in the dream for 100 years. Of course, this amount of time was nothing more than a snap of the fingers for cultivators, but for Fang Chen, it was simply torture. In these 100 years, the Death Cliff had undergone great changes. Many members of the demon-devouring tribe had also quietly invaded, as though they were searching for something. The appearance of the Ghost Emperor's ghost weapon, which had caused a huge uproar, had also quieted down. The Death Cliff was filled with endless danger. However, the Soul River was still silent. Apart from that, a great commotion had occurred in the origin world as well. According to the news from the 4 sacred grounds, the patriarch of the demon-devouring clan had reached a critical point in his seclusion. He needed all the cultivation resources in the entire origin world to help him overcome this crisis. Therefore, in these 100 years, the 4 sacred lands had issued orders for all the manors under their command to begin searching for rare treasures. Anything that could be used would be sent to the 4 sacred lands, and finally brought back by the demon-devouring tribe's patriarch's emissaries. In the Ghost Manor territory, the Ghost Manor Lord was surrounded by black mist. His face was gloomy, and his fists were clenched tightly. He was extremely angry. When the Ghost Manor was in dire straits, the 4 sacred lands did not help. After so many years, I have led the Ghost Manor to rise again. Yet, the 4 sacred lands want me to offer up all the rare treasures. Clearly, the Ghost Manor Lord was very angry. Beside him, a blue-robed middle-aged man said, "Brother, don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Last time, you attacked 2 juniors and drew out the primitive tribes. If you offend the 4 sacred lands this time, you will definitely be condemned by the 4 sacred lands. At that time, the Ghost Manor will not be able to resist." The Ghost Manor Lord fell into silence, his eyes filled with cold, killing intent. The Ghost Manor was different from the other manors. The other manors were absolutely loyal to the 4 sacred lands, but the Ghost Manor was an independent faction. This was because there was a path under the Ghost Manor that led to the underworld. The souls of all the dead demon-devouring tribe members would enter the underworld. As for the Ghost Mansion Master, he controlled a path that led to the underworld. This was also his escape route. If he was truly forced into a corner and started a war with the 4 great sacred lands, he would immediately enter the underworld if he was defeated. The 4 sacred lands would not dare to attack the underworld even if they had 100 times the courage. Once they destroyed the underworld, hundreds of millions of vengeful souls would appear, and the entire origin world would be completely destroyed. This was something that the demon-devouring tribe patriarch did not want to see, and the 4 sacred lands did not dare to do it. Whoosh! Suppressing the anger in his heart, the Ghost Manor Lord loosened his fists. At this time, a voice came from outside, "The emissary of the sacred lands has arrived." The Ghost Manor Lord walked out of his room and saw the arrogant emissary. He walked over with a gloomy expression. "The sacred lands have ordered the Ghost Manor Lord to receive the order." "Speak," the Ghost Manor Lord said coldly. The emissary's expression changed. "Ghost Manor Lord, what is the meaning of this?" Whoosh! The Ghost Manor Lord grabbed him by the collar and glared at him. "This is the Ghost Manor. You better not make me angry." Slap! The emissary was thrown to the ground, his heart filled with fear and anger. "I am the emissary of the sacred lands. I represent the will of the sacred lands. You dare to touch me? Are you not afraid of the sacred lands crusade?" The 4 sacred lands were the core of the demon-devouring tribe, and also the 4 top forces under the demon-devouring tribe patriarch. As the emissary of the sacred lands, and this time, he was working for the legendary demon-devouring tribe patriarch. He naturally had his own pride, and being humiliated by the Ghost Manor Lord in public made him furious. Boom! The Ghost Manor Lord stepped on the emissary's body and said coldly, "It is because you are the emissary of the sacred lands that you are able to keep your life. Otherwise, do you think you would still be able to speak?" The emissary's body trembled. Feeling the cold and terrifying gaze, he stuttered a little. The emissary was afraid. He was really afraid. He had long heard that the Ghost Manor Lord was strange and did not stick to one pattern. Today, he finally experienced it for himself. He even suspected that if he continued to act arrogantly with his identity as the emissary of the sacred lands, the Ghost Manor Lord would definitely kill him. Chapter 3856. The will of the sacred lands was equivalent to one of the highest orders of the devouring demon clan. If the devouring demon clan's patriarch did not appear, then the will of the sacred lands was the strongest. The 4 sacred lands were the claws and fangs of the devouring demon clan's patriarch, as well as his confidants. In order to pursue the legendary realm of primal chaos controller, he threw away all distracting thoughts and spent most of his time in seclusion. Therefore, the vast origin realm was under the control of the 4 sacred lands. Once any race had reached the peak of reproduction, all kinds of problems would inevitably occur. The devouring demon clan was no exception. If the devouring demon clan's patriarch was present, no one would dare to have any other thoughts. But now, the devouring demon clan's patriarch had yet to come out of seclusion. The forces under the 4 sacred lands gradually began to evolve. Each of them wanted to fight for more resources. However, no matter what, the 4 sacred lands were the targets of the various prefectures. They had to obey the orders of the sacred lands. That was why the sacred lands' envoy was so arrogant. In their eyes, a mere lord of a prefecture was nothing in front of the sacred lands. However, he encountered the Ghost Palace's lord. Although the latter was also from the devouring demon clan, he had betrayed them a long time ago. Moreover, He had obtained a trace of the underworld's inheritance and established the underworld above the underworld's passageway. He had his own plans and plans. A mere sacred land's envoy dared to show off in front of him. He was simply courting death. Crack. He exerted force with his foot. Immediately, the envoy's chest seemed to collapse. The sound of bones shattering could be heard. The envoy screamed and hurriedly begged for mercy. "Lord." The Ghost Palace's lord removed his foot and said coldly, "Speak." This time, the envoy had learned his lesson. He did not dare to act presumptuously in front of the Ghost Palace's lord. After standing up, he said in a low voice, "Lord, the sacred lands sent me to the Ghost Palace territory with a mission for the Ghost Palace to complete." Then, he reported the details of the mission to the Ghost Palace's lord. The latter's expression was calm, but a trace of cold killing intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. "You want me to hand over the cultivation resources the Ghost Palace has collected over the years?" he said coldly. The blue-robed middle-aged man beside him could see the Ghost Palace's lord's anger. He secretly tugged on the Ghost Palace's lord's clothes, indicating him to calm down. After all, this envoy represented the sacred land's will. If they really killed him, the Holy Land would be humiliated, and they would definitely stop at nothing to deal with the Ghost Manor. At that time, they would have no choice but to escape into the Netherworld. After all, the entire origin world belonged to the devil-devouring clan. The Ghost Manor lord glanced at the emissary and said, "My Ghost Manor has encountered countless difficulties and sought help from the sacred land, but the sacred land turned a blind eye to it. Over the years, the Ghost Manor has finally developed under my leadership, but the sacred land wants me to hand over all the cultivation resources we've gathered over the years. Palace Lord, the 4 great holy lands are all doing the same thing. I'm sure you've heard some rumors. The cultivation resources that we're collecting are not for the holy lands to use, but for the old ancestor." The Holy Land emissary was filled with respect when he mentioned the old ancestor. No one in the devouring demon clan would be disrespectful to the great ancestor. Patriarch. The Ghost Manor lord's eyes flickered. To be honest, he was also afraid of the legendary ancestor. After all, he was a peak existence that had created an origin world. No one in the entire primal chaos void was a match for him. A single word from him could control the lives of hundreds of millions of clansmen. Phew. The Ghost Manor lord took a deep breath and said in a hoarse voice, "Go back first. I'll sort out the cultivation resources and send them to the sacred land soon." "All right, then I'll take my leave first." With that, the Holy Land emissary quickly left the City Lord Manor. Bang! The Ghost Manor lord smashed the wooden table beside him with a ferocious expression. This is too much. The Ghost Manor's accumulation over the years was to prepare for opening the forbidden land of the underworld. If they were to hand it all over to the sacred land, his plans over the years would be completely ruined. "Don't be rash," the blue-robed middle-aged man dissuaded. "You should be aware of the old ancestor's strength. The 4 great holy lands are currently collecting cultivation resources for him. Perhaps he's reached the most critical moment of his seclusion and is making the final push. Perhaps something went wrong with his seclusion." The blue-robed middle-aged man leaned towards the second possibility. After all, at their level, it was extremely difficult to advance any further. The slightest carelessness could lead to danger. No matter what, the 4 great holy lands are collecting cultivation resources for the old ancestor. At this juncture, you'll be condemned by everyone if you resist, the blue-robed middle-aged man said. The Ghost Manor lord nodded. Whoosh! At this moment, a blue light flashed between his eyebrows. His expression changed as his figure flashed and disappeared into the ground. He knew that the blue light was a signal from the underworld. After passing through layers of seals, the Ghost Manor lord arrived at a depth of 10 billion miles. Normally speaking, even a limit saint would not be able to dive so deep. However, the Ghost Manor lord was not an ordinary saint. He had the mark of the underworld. Whoosh! The deeper he went, the more the blue light on his forehead flickered. Soon, he arrived at the boundary. Looking at the boundary, the Ghost Manor lord became even more determined. Buzz! He opened his palm and gently pinched the blue jade pendant. His figure instantly disappeared. In the origin world, Orders from the sacred lands were everywhere. All the cultivation resources of the manors were being counted and prepared to be handed over. However, the cliff of death gradually quieted down. Some guessed that the powerful existences in the cliff of death might have heard the news about the old ancestor and thus calmed down, not daring to act rashly. Some said that the powerful existences in the cliff of death had fallen into a deep sleep and were making their final push. Of course, some said that this was the rhythm of the dark storm before dawn. In short, everyone was anxious and the atmosphere in the cliff of death was unprecedentedly tense. As for Fang Chen, he was still trapped in the dreamland. He had been trapped in it for over 30 years. The speed at which the puppet fighters are condensing is slowing down. He discovered that after defeating one puppet fighter, the speed at which another puppet fighter was condensing had greatly decreased. In the past, it would condense in an instant. Now, it would take more than a month to condense. Sometimes, it would even take half a year or even a year to condense. He guessed that the condensing of puppet fighters would consume the energy of the void battleground. In the past 30 years, he had defeated countless puppet fighters and the void battleground's energy had been greatly depleted. This caused the speed at which the puppet fighters were condensing to greatly decrease. If the puppet fighters in the void battleground are completely consumed and I am unable to condense another puppet fighter, will I be able to leave the dream realm and return to reality? Fang Chen thought to himself. When he thought of this, a trace of excitement rose in his heart. It seemed that escaping the dream realm was no longer out of reach. Chapter 38:57. Just as Fang Chen had guessed, the reason why so many puppet fighters could be condensed in the void battlefield in the dreamland was due to a special energy. Every time a puppet collapsed, a part of the energy would be consumed. Over time, once the energy was exhausted, the seal of the void battleground would break, and Fang Chen would be able to easily leave the dream world and return to reality. At this moment, he was no longer in the mood to think about how he had entered the dreamland and what the white jade statue meant. He wanted nothing more than to leave this place. Rumble. The ultimate sword Dao grew sharper and sharper. Every streak of sword light was imbued with immense power. It was as if they possessed the power to split the heavens and earth apart. They struck the war puppet viciously, leaving behind obvious sword marks. Whoosh! Fang Chen took a deep breath and stomped his foot, unleashing the power of the vermilion bird bloodline. The puppet fighter's movements slowed down significantly. At this moment, he seized the opportunity and pierced the puppet fighter's head with his sword, destroying its core. Crack! The war puppet gradually shattered and scattered with the wind. Fang Chen held the heaven-destroying sword in his hand and smiled faintly. After being trapped in the dream for dozens of years, he had finally grasped the puppet fighter's fatal weakness. They were not afraid of any kind of attack, but they were repelled by the bloodline of ancient divine beasts. After countless experiments, Fang Chen understood that as long as he released the vermilion bird bloodline, he could slow down the puppet fighter's movements. Although it was only for a few seconds, it was enough for a powerhouse like him. The heaven-destroying sword could pierce through the core of a puppet fighter at the fastest speed. This way, he would be much more relaxed. 10 years later, Fang Chen's cultivation had finally recovered to the peak of his previous life. He had stepped into the great circle of the 9th stage. If he used his full strength, coupled with the heaven-destroying sword and the ultimate sword art, he could easily kill an invincible saint. He could even fight against an ultimate saint. Whoosh! He heaved a sigh of relief and gazed at the void battleground. It took him 5 years to condense a puppet fighter. Fang Chen could clearly feel that after the puppet fighter was condensed, the power in the void battleground seemed to have been drained in an instant. He realized that this puppet fighter should be the last one. As long as he defeated it, he would be able to break the seal of the void battleground and leave the dreamland. Success or failure hinged on this one move. Kill! Fang Chen bellowed. He didn't give the puppet fighter a chance to retaliate. He made the first move and performed the ultimate sword principle. The terrifying ultimate sword technique was continuously released under the sky-crushing sword. Countless sword lights crisscrossed and trapped the puppet fighter. Roar! Suddenly, the war puppet looked up to the sky and roared, as if it was about to launch a devastating attack. Having been trapped in the void battleground for decades, Fang Chen had experienced battles all the time. He was well aware of the puppet fighter's movements. Naturally, he would not let the puppet fighter attack. Otherwise, it would be difficult to resist. Buzz. The Vermilion Bird bloodline and the Perfect bloodline were released at the same time. The two powerful bloodlines crisscrossed and surrounded the puppet fighter, slowing down its movements. At this moment, Fang Chen slashed with his sword. Crack! To his surprise, the sky-crushing sword did not split the puppet fighter's head open. He cried out in surprise, but he quickly recovered. The binding power of the Vermilion Bird bloodline was weakening. In a few seconds, the puppet fighter would return to normal. At that time, it would be difficult for him to defeat it. Whoosh! In a flash, he made a shocking decision. He took a deep breath and controlled the vast Perfect bloodline, injecting it into the puppet fighter's head. Due to the uniqueness of the Perfect bloodline, the puppet fighter could not resist it. Even though the Perfect bloodline could not destroy the center of its head, it could cooperate with the Vermilion Bird bloodline. Boom! The sky-crushing sword accumulated power and struck the puppet fighter again. The Perfect bloodline instantly exploded and clashed with the Vermilion Bird bloodline. A powerful magnetic field formed and shattered the puppet fighter. Dong! Fang Chen's body was sent flying by the terrifying force. He fell to the ground for a long time before he recovered. His chest heaved and his face was slightly pale. Fortunately, the puppet fighter had been destroyed. His guess was right. The puppet fighter had consumed the last bit of energy in the void battleground. The void battleground became silent. No more puppet fighters were formed. This meant that Fang Chen had succeeded. Crack! A soft sound entered his ears. Fang Chen released his primordial spirit and discovered the changes in the void battleground. The seal was being lifted. Am I finally going out? An excited smile appeared on Fang Chen's face. He used this period of time to recover as much energy as he could. After a while, the sound of a bell suddenly rang in his mind. Following that, a white light flashed and he returned to reality. Whoosh! Fang Chen opened his eyes and found himself in front of the white jade statue. The square was silent. The white jade statue was also very quiet. There was nothing unusual. I'm finally out. Fang Chen muttered to himself. He lifted his head again and looked at the white jade statue. This lifelike beautiful woman was exactly the same as Princess Huang. He even guessed that the owner of the white jade statue might be the ancestor of Princess Huang's bloodline. Maybe she was also a member of the primitive tribe. Otherwise, which force would be able to build such a huge palace under the Soul River? Wang. Just as he was thinking, the white jade statue's palm suddenly broke off and a line of small words appeared in front of his eyes. Fang Chen looked at these small words seriously. After reading them, he had a strange expression. It turned out that this so-called dream realm was just a test from the white jade statue. If he could break out of the dream realm within 100 years, he would pass. Otherwise, he would be trapped in the dream realm forever until the end of his life. Whoosh! Fang Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. That was really dangerous. He almost couldn't get out. However, he still didn't understand why the white jade statue was testing him. Wang. The white jade statue emitted a gentle white light, illuminating the entire palace. Suddenly, walls appeared around the square, sealing it completely. On the walls, countless scenes appeared. Each scene was a beautiful figure fighting. Fang Chen discovered that the beautiful figure fighting was the owner of the white jade statue. What does this mean? Fang Chen was dumbfounded. These battle scenes were shown to him. Could it be that they wanted him to comprehend the secret arts in the scenes? In the scenes, it was a weak woman at the beginning. Then, she grew up step by step. This could be seen as the growth history of the owner of the white jade statue. However, in the process of her growth, a sentence appeared on one of the walls. Good and evil can be decided with a single thought. Fang Chen's eyes flickered as he muttered this sentence. Why were there no words in the other scenes except for this one? Unknowingly, Fang Chen's eyes turned blurry as though he was immersed in it. Chapter 3858. Good and evil were separated by a single thought. This sentence was easy to understand, but difficult to understand. It was almost incomprehensible. Because this sentence itself had a certain ambiguity. Everyone's definition of good and evil was different. How could they reach a consensus? Obviously, it was impossible. However, Fang Chen knew that since the white jade statue had sent him into the dream, he had been trapped for decades to hone his combat skills. Now that he had just come out, there had been a series of changes, showing him her previous fighting style. He thought that this sentence should be the core. In the past, he thought that good was not killing and robbing, not doing any shady business, and cultivating openly, caring for the world, and being righteous. As long as he was firm in his dream, one day the world would be unified. However, later, after he came into contact with more of the cultivation world, he found that his so-called not killing and robbing, and not doing heartless things were not good at all. Good was relative. Not killing did not mean that one was good. Not killing did not mean that one was evil. Where there were people, there would be jianghu. Where there were jianghu, there would be disputes. And where there were disputes, there would naturally be good and evil. For example, if you killed an evil person, you might save hundreds of lives. Would you kill him or not? If you didn't kill him, hundreds of lives would be lost because of your wrong decision. What would they do? They were innocent. Good and evil. Fang Chen was confused. Since ancient times, good and evil were incompatible, and good and evil were opposite. Throughout his life, he had started cultivating from the ancient sword continent's divine wind nation. Along the way, he had stumbled and countless cultivators had died in his hands. However, he could pat his chest proudly and say that he had never killed the innocent. The people he had killed were all heinous people. Different camps represent different good and evil, Fang Chen muttered to himself, and the line of words kept echoing in his mind. All of a sudden, he looked at the pictures on the surrounding walls. At first, he thought that it was just the growth process of the owner of the white jade statue, but now, after thinking about it, he found that each picture on the wall represented the good and evil of the owner of the white jade statue at a stage. For example, on the first wall, she pursued martial arts wholeheartedly. As long as someone blocked her path, she would kill them without mercy, regardless of good or evil. At this stage, he was a selfish martial artist. But in this world where the strong preyed on the weak, she was not wrong. On the ninth wall, she had a faint aura of a leader. At this time, she was no longer blindly pursuing the peak of martial arts. Instead, she was seeking a balance between justice and evil. She wanted to work hard to change the world so that good and evil could coexist. At this stage, her thoughts had already transformed, and she had become a true leader. The 35th wall, the 96th wall, his gaze shifted to the 188th wall. At this time, the owner of the white jade statue's temperament had undergone another transformation. She seemed to stand at the highest peak, without any desires, as if all other mountains were small and insignificant beneath her. The 366th wall. She had comprehended an ultimate Tao and stepped into the half-step primal chaos supremacy level. However, for the sake of her race, she had fallen into dire straits. At this moment, although she was in despair, her heart was very clear. The good and evil that she had pursued in her life was to protect her race and defend against foreign enemies. Boom. Fang Chen was greatly impacted by the scenes on the wall. His primordial spirit was frantically revolving, and his aura was constantly rising. He could clearly sense the growth experience of the owner of the white jade statue from the many scenes on the wall, as well as the path of transformation to pursue good and evil. What is good and evil? Fang Chen muttered to himself. At the same time, in the Soul River above the palace, Lungxian's eyelashes trembled slightly. Her red lips were gradually turning purple, and the white dress on her body was gradually corroding due to being soaked in the Soul River for a long time. However, there was a layer of grey halo on the surface of her skin, which completely covered her snow-white skin. Good and evil, what is it? A soft voice resounded in the Soul River. A teardrop rolled down Lungxian's white cheeks. Rumble. On this day, the quiet Soul River suddenly surged. The water of the Soul River constantly swept up towering waves, and an extremely terrifying corrosive force swept across the world. Even the nearby mountain ranges were affected by it. The news spread quickly, and everyone in the Death Cliff was shocked. There were rumors that a fallen peerless expert was about to revive in the Death Cliff, and that had angered the Soul River. There were also rumors that there was a treasure under the Soul River, but no one dared to go close to the Soul River. Even the mysterious beast tamer who had witnessed Fang Chen jumping into the Soul River had a change of expression when he talked about it. The rebellion of the Soul River had attracted the attention of the Death Cliff. Everyone was guessing why the Soul River was rebelling, and whether the water of the Soul River would flow out and spread to every corner of the Death Cliff. This was related to everyone's life and death, and they had to pay attention to it. Finally, on the 7th day of the rumor, a powerful ancient tribe in the Death Cliff spoke. The Death Cliff is the place where the martyrs fell. You have barged into the Death Cliff and angered the martyrs, causing the Soul River to rebel. The ancient tribe's expert shouted across the sky, quickly retreat from the Death Cliff, and return the Death Cliff to its peaceful state. Otherwise, the Soul River will flood the Death Cliff and wash the Death Cliff with blood. When this news came out, the entire Death Cliff was in an uproar. Some timid martial artists were already looking for a way to leave, and some thought that it was a trick of the ancient tribes in the Death Cliff to scare them and make them withdraw from the battle for the Ghost Emperor's weapon. Of course, there were also some who wanted to get close to the Soul River to investigate. But before they could get close to the Soul River, they were corroded by the Soul River and died. For a moment, the Death Cliff was filled with confusion. On a mountain top. How is it? Sword Lunatic asked. The old ancestor of the beasts shook his head with a gloomy face. The forces in the Death Cliff are complicated. Now that the Soul River is rebelling, it has caused everyone to feel uneasy. Once the Ghost Emperor's weapon appears, it will definitely lead to a fierce battle. They thought that they could easily get the weapon and report back. Who would have thought that it would lead to such a huge commotion? Sword Lunatic clenched his fist, and sword light flickered on his body. If Princess Huang was here, they wouldn't be in such a passive situation, right? Don't think about it. He jumped into the Soul River and will definitely die. The old ancestor of the beasts shook his head. He didn't believe that anyone could survive in the Soul River. What should we do next? Sword Lunatic asked. Be careful. I have a feeling that the Soul River rebelling is related to the appearance of the Ghost Emperor's weapon. Chapter 38:59. Good and evil were separated by a single thought. What one thought of as good might be evil in the eyes of others, and what one thought of as evil might just be a desire to survive in the eyes of others. Good and evil were not differentiated by right or wrong, nor by race. As long as there was good in one's heart, it was good. Buzz. When Fang Chen muttered those words, his entire temperament underwent a drastic change. Golden light flowed on the surface of his skin, and his primordial spirit trembled as he attempted to reach the Tao manifestation realm again and again. Of course, there were very few people who wanted to reach the Tao manifestation realm since ancient times. Even some outstanding supremes were unable to do so, let alone a small cultivator like Fang Chen. He had no intention of reaching the Tao manifestation realm, but only wanted to raise his cultivation level and transform his perfect bloodline completely. Only then would he have a chance to resist the attack of the demon-devouring clan leader and save the entire Chaos realm. Buzz. Rings of light appeared around his primordial spirit. Fang Chen's expression was calm as his primordial spirit continued to change. With each additional ring of light, the resistance against his primordial spirit would become stronger. Time passed bit by bit, and in the blink of an eye, 9 years had passed. During this period, the number of rings of light around his primordial spirit gradually increased. In 9 years, the number of rings of light had reached 100,000. At this moment, Fang Chen's primordial spirit had reached its limit and could no longer withstand the pressure of the rings of light. Condense. There was a hysterical roar in the depths of his primordial spirit. His primordial spirit trembled violently as it forcefully absorbed the 100,000 rings of light in an attempt to reach the Tao manifestation realm. However, in the end, it failed. After absorbing the 100,000 rings of light, Fang Chen's primordial spirit reached a completely new realm, but it was still a step away from the Tao manifestation realm. Although he had not reached the Tao manifestation realm, he still benefited greatly. Under the powerful effect of his primordial spirit, the perfect bloodline in his body gradually transformed, and it had completely absorbed the vermilion bird bloodline. After all, it was the bloodline of the ancient divine beast vermilion bird, which was rare in the world. Dong. The perfect bloodline continued to flow through Fang Chen's body. A faint golden color gradually appeared in his bright red blood. This was the greatest change to the perfect bloodline. Fang Chen even had a bold guess. If he absorbed all the bloodlines of the 4 divine beasts, would the perfect bloodline transform into the strongest bloodline in the world, surpassing the primordial bloodline? Of course, this was an almost impossible task. In the age of chaos, cultivation was even more difficult. The ancient divine beasts had long since gone extinct. Even the descendants of the ancient divine beasts were nearly extinct. He had only managed to obtain the vermilion bird bloodline from the people of the Soaring Phoenix Manor by chance. The vermilion bird bloodline he had obtained back then was a little impure. However, after refining and purifying it with his perfect bloodline, the vermilion bird bloodline was able to unleash its greatest might, and its density had also increased greatly. That was how he had achieved what he had today. It was extremely difficult to obtain the azure dragon bloodline, the white tiger bloodline, and the black tortoise bloodline. Whoosh! After a long while, Fang Chen suddenly woke up. He instantly felt the changes in his body and a bright smile appeared on his face. Has the perfect bloodline transformed? After absorbing the vermilion bird bloodline, the transformation of the perfect bloodline seemed to have opened up a new direction for Fang Chen. He had a premonition that it would not be long before his perfect bloodline would undergo the ultimate transformation. After comprehending the truth of good and evil, Fang Chen suddenly felt enlightened. His essence, qi, and spirit had all become stronger. He raised his head to look at the white jade statue and bowed deeply. Thinking about it carefully, the tests set by the owner of the white jade statue were all linked. First, he was trapped in the void battleground in the dreamland. Then, he used the uniqueness of the void battleground to form a puppet fighter, hone his fighting skills, and improve his actual combat strength. After successfully breaking out of the void battleground and escaping from the dreamland, he fell into a deeper level of enlightenment. What exactly was good and evil? This was probably the source of confusion for countless cultivators since ancient times after reaching a certain level. What was good? What was evil? There was no clear distinction between good and evil. The test set by the owner of the white jade statue was also to test the purity of Fang Chen's heart. If one harbored evil intentions, they would not be able to fully comprehend the truth of good and evil. After comprehending the truth of good and evil, the white jade statue helped Fang Chen complete the transformation of his primordial spirit. It also improved his strength again. Most importantly, his perfect bloodline had evolved again, and this time it had transformed after absorbing the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, the vermilion bird. It was no exaggeration to say that. The transformation this time had given Fang Chen the qualifications to compete with the top powerhouses. At least, there were few people in the Saint Realm who could threaten his life. However, he was still stuck at the threshold of the Supreme Realm. Combining the cultivation experience of 2 lifetimes, Fang Chen was filled with emotions. No wonder so many experts from ancient times wanted to reincarnate and cultivate after standing at the peak. It was a pity that many people failed. After all, not everyone could reincarnate and cultivate again through the path of reincarnation. It was said that, back then, in order to prevent the experts of the Chaos Realm from reincarnating, the patriarch of the Devouring Demon clan led an army to attack the path of reincarnation. According to historical records, the path of reincarnation was severely damaged and disappeared from the world. If he had not met the great sage, Fang Chen would not have believed that the path of reincarnation really existed in the Chaos Realm. Whoosh! The more he cultivated, the more he felt that the great sage was unfathomable. Fang Chen even guessed that the great sage was the driving force behind all of this. Or was he the controller of the path of reincarnation? Of course, all of this was just speculation. There was no substantial evidence, and he did not need to prove anything. He reincarnated into the origin world with the help of the great sage. No matter what his identity was, he was thinking for the people of the Chaos Realm. This was enough. Fang Chen shook his head and looked at the white jade statue again. At this time, he was surprised to find that there were a few drops of tears flowing from one of the eyes of the white jade statue. This discovery made him turn pale with fright. How could there be tears on the statue? What was going on? He quickly walked in front of the statue. His powerful divine sense spread out and enveloped the white jade statue. He carefully examined it, trying to find clues. Crack! The arm of the white jade statue shattered and two words gradually formed. Good and evil. These two words again. Fang Chen was puzzled. Why did the owner of the white jade statue keep emphasizing good and evil? What was her intention? Everyone had a different understanding of good and evil. Take Fang Chen for example. The good in his heart was to save the Chaos Realm and prevent his family and friends from being implicated. Of course, the most important thing was that he did not want to see his hometown torn apart. This was his good. As for evil, in his understanding, the actions of the devouring demon clan were evil. They were natural enemies. Good and evil were naturally opposite. Chapter 3860. Catcher. A crisp sound echoed in the square. Fang Chen raised his head and stared at the white jade statue. At this moment, the statue was gradually shattering, its fragments scattered all over the ground. Fang Chen exclaimed. Why would the white jade statue shatter without any warning? What was going on? Could it be because of him? The white jade statue had always emphasized the distinction between good and evil. Not long ago, he had passed many tests and comprehended his inner understanding of good and evil. The white jade statue began to fall off. In the blink of an eye, the white jade statue had changed beyond recognition. At this moment, a violent tremor came from the depths of the palace. A beautiful figure appeared out of thin air. The moment she appeared, the heavens and the earth dimmed. There was a faint coldness on her white cheeks. Her eyes were clear as she looked forward. Her body was surrounded by a thick halo. In her mind, memories gradually emerged. Boom! When the white jade statue completely shattered and fell to the ground, her mind trembled. All her memories were restored. At the same time, there were some additional memories. Whoosh! She rushed to the square as fast as she could and ran to the front of the collapsed white jade statue. However, she was still one step too slow. Looking at the shattered white jade statue, she was instantly stunned. The memories in her mind flashed repeatedly. Tears welled up in her eyes. Soon, her face was covered in tears. She was crying silently. At this moment, she had forgotten about time and everything. She squatted on the ground, her body twitching. She reached out her small white hand and picked up a piece of white jade on the ground. She held it in her palm. Why did this happen? She let out a painful cry. Ever since she could remember, she had been an orphan. If not for her master taking her in, she would have died in the wilderness. However, after she was forced into the Soul River, she received the help and guidance of a mysterious expert. From there, she entered the palace and received a powerful inheritance. The moment she received the inheritance, the powerful bloodline hidden in the depths of her body was completely activated. Her memories were restored, and there were many additional memories of the inheritance. These memories came from her family. Why did this happen? Although her long hair covered her face, one could still vaguely see that her face was covered in tears and looked like she was in great pain. Fang Chen seemed to have guessed something. He stood quietly behind Princess Huang and waited. At this time, silent support was the best consolation. After Princess Huang's emotions stabilized, it wouldn't be too late for him to communicate with her. Just like this, they waited for 3 days and 3 nights before Princess Huang's emotions finally stabilized. Fang Chen walked behind her and lightly patted her shoulder. Only then did Princess Huang realize that there was someone behind her. She abruptly turned around and a familiar face entered her eyes. Princess Huang wanted to say something, but when the words were about to leave her mouth, sorrow instantly overwhelmed her. Although she was a strong woman, her heart was weak. When she saw Fang Chen, she rushed into his arms and burst into tears. Fang Chen patted her shoulder and comforted her. "It's okay. Everything will be fine." After a long time, Princess Huang's emotions stabilized again. She struggled for a moment and broke away from Fang Chen's arms. She lowered her head and her face was flushed red. She didn't dare to look at Fang Chen directly. "When did you come to the Cliff of Death?" Fang Chen broke the silence and asked in a low voice. Hearing this, Princess Huang said, "After you fell into the spatial storm, Master told me that this is your calamity. If you can survive it, you will definitely grow. It was at that time that Master sent me to the Cliff of Death." "Why are you here?" Princess Huang asked. Back then, she saw Fang Chen falling into the spatial storm with her own eyes. Moreover, he was killed by the Ghost Manor's Manor Lord. Even if he was an extreme sage, he might not be able to survive it. She had always thought that Fang Chen was dead. She didn't expect to meet him here. Fang Chen gave a simple explanation of how he had fallen into the Cliff of Death by chance. Furthermore, he also told Princess Huang about his experiences in the past few decades. After the latter heard this, she sighed. She didn't expect Fang Chen to have experienced so much. "What about you? Why did you enter the Soul River?" Princess Huang's expression changed slightly. She thought of the ancestor of the demonic beast race and sword lunatic. Her voice carried a trace of cold killing intent as she said, "I was suppressed by the ancestor of the demonic beast race and sword lunatic. They wanted to force me to lead the way for them. I found an opportunity to escape and was forced into the Soul River in the end." Princess Huang's actions had already expressed her attitude. She would rather die than submit. "It's all thanks to that senior. If it wasn't for her help and the method that Master left on me, I wouldn't have been able to survive in the Soul River," Princess Huang said. Fang Chen was even more puzzled. Why would Lung Xian help Princess Huang? Could it be because of the white jade statue in the palace? He looked at Princess Huang. The latter continued, "The white jade statue that shattered just now was my mother." When she said this, tears welled up in Princess Huang's eyes. However, she resisted the urge to cry out loud. "After I received the inheritance left behind by my mother, the inheritance memories were also activated and I learned many secrets. It turned out that her mother's lineage also belonged to the primitive race. However, it was the lineage with the thinnest bloodline. However, her mother was very monstrous. Relying on her thin bloodline, she created a world for herself. Unfortunately, she eventually fell at the Cliff of Death. For this reason, her master used the methods of the primitive race to build a palace and a statue for her mother in the Soul River. Before the last wisp of my mother's primordial spirit shattered, she engraved all the secret techniques that she had cultivated throughout her life in the deepest part of the palace. Moreover, she also set up layers of tests in the white jade statue. If I were to come here, my bloodline will definitely send me to the place of inheritance." Princess Huang said, "If an outsider comes, they will be forced to accept the test of the white jade statue. If they pass the test." Speaking of this, a faint blush appeared on Princess Huang's cheeks. "What will happen if I pass the test?" Fang Chen asked. Princess Huang seemed to be a little shy. The inheritance memories in her mind clearly told her that if a male cultivator passed the test, the white jade statue would shatter. And the shattering of the white jade statue meant that Princess Huang's mother had chosen Fang Chen. "It's nothing." Princess Huang's eyes evaded. She walked to the side and tried her best to calm her heart. Fang Chen was stunned and full of doubts. Of course, Princess Huang wouldn't tell him that the test set by her mother was to choose a husband for her. However, Fang Chen didn't dwell on this matter. He looked at Princess Huang seriously. The latter's identity was already clear. She was a member of the primitive race. Perhaps, the primitive race wanted to borrow Princess Huang's hand to help the Chaos Realm? Chapter 3861. After Princess Huang received the inheritance, her strength had improved by leaps and bounds. She already had the combat strength of an invincible sage. However, after experiencing the dangers of the Cliff of Death, even an invincible sage still had some fear towards the Cliff of Death. Fortunately, she met Fang Chen. "Let's go out first." Princess Huang regained her composure after a brief moment of absent-mindedness and said with a faint smile. Fang Chen nodded. Although this was a palace built by a primitive race, it was still under the Soul River. If they were careless, they would be invaded by the Soul River. At that time, it would be hard to say whether they would live or die. Princess Huang pulled Fang Chen's hand. Suddenly, the latter felt the softness and warmth in his palm. He subconsciously held her hand tightly. Princess Huang's face was flushed red. She lowered her head and chanted a chant in her heart. Soon, the white jade fragments in the square spun wildly and turned into a whirlpool channel. Princess Huang took Fang Chen and stepped into the whirlpool channel. Boom! When the two of them left the whirlpool channel, the entire palace collapsed. The Soul River invaded and completely submerged the collapsed palace. A white light flashed. Princess Huang and Fang Chen came to the place where Senior Lungxian was. At this moment, the latter was still like a living corpse, frozen in the Soul River. Senior Lungxian. Fang Chen tried to wake Lungxian up, but the latter didn't move. He tried to get closer but found that the closer he got to Senior Lungxian, the greater the resistance. In the end, he couldn't take another step forward. He finally gave up. Huff! Fang Chen gasped for breath. His forehead was full of sweat. His eyes were filled with grief as he looked at Senior Lungxian. If it wasn't for Senior Lungxian, his cultivation wouldn't have recovered so quickly. He didn't expect that when he came out of the broken space, Senior Lungxian would be frozen in the Soul River. What was going on? Could it be that Senior Lungxian encountered danger and was forced into the Soul River like him? Thinking of this, Fang Chen clenched his fists. He was furious. He bowed deeply to Senior Lungxian and promised, "Senior Lungxian, don't worry. One day, I will save you. I won't let anyone who has hurt you go." After saying that, he and Princess Huang quietly left the Soul River. However, no one noticed that at this moment, a teardrop hung from the corner of Lungxian's eyes. Voila! Above the raging Soul River, a whirlpool suddenly appeared. Fang Chen and Princess Huang walked out from it. They leaped up and arrived at the shore of the Soul River. Whoosh! Fang Chen heaved a sigh of relief and sat down on the ground. Ever since he entered the Soul River, he had been tense. Now that he was finally out, he could finally relax. According to Master's prediction, the Ghost Emperor's ghost artifact should be born soon. Princess Phoenix spoke in a gentle voice. This time, the Ghost Emperor's ghost artifact has attracted many peerless experts. Even those old monsters who had experienced the divine battle at the Death Horizon have come out of seclusion. Fang Chen nodded. Although there were many experts, it would be difficult to obtain the Ghost Emperor's ghost artifact. However, the more chaotic the situation was, the better it was for them. The distance between the Soul River and the core of the Death Cliff is at least 3 years. "We need to hurry," Princess Huang said. Not long after, the two of them left the Soul River. The Soul River raged. Monstrous waves soared into the sky, as if wanting to corrode the entire Death Cliff. On this day, some people followed from afar and saw a man and a woman in the sky above the raging Soul River. They stepped on the monstrous waves and fled into the sky. For a time, rumors spread everywhere. Some people said that the peerless expert in the Soul River had awakened. He sent 2 of his disciples to take action, wanting to seize the Ghost Emperor's ghost artifact. Some people said, during the divine battle back then, there was a sword and saber duo who fell into the Soul River. After countless years, they were resurrected. Now that they came out, they vowed to flatten the Death Cliff. In short, rumors about the Soul River swept through the entire Death Cliff like a tide. Of course, they would never dream that the man and woman they were talking about were Fang Chen and Princess Huang. With Fang Chen and Princess Huang's current strength, as long as they didn't take the initiative to provoke some peerless experts, they basically had no problem protecting themselves. They didn't linger along the way and headed to the core of the Death Cliff with their fastest speed. 3 years later, they finally arrived at the edge of the core of the Death Cliff. One day, they met unexpected acquaintances. The old ancestor of the monster race and Sword Lunatic. These two had always been enemies in the life-forbidden zone. They didn't expect to meet again after a few decades. Moreover, the most important thing was that Princess Huang was forced into the Soul River by these two people. "It's you guys." When Sword Lunatic saw Fang Chen and Princess Huang, he was incomparably shocked and slashed out with his sword. "Catcher!" Fang Chen raised his palm and gently grasped the sword that was as fast as lightning. He exerted force and crushed it. Then, side by side with Princess Huang, they came in front of Sword Lunatic and the old ancestor of the monster race. "You're actually alive." The old ancestor of the monster race's eyelids twitched. His heart was filled with raging waves. He had never seen anyone come out of the Soul River alive. Could it be? He seemed to have thought of something as his eyes were filled with greed. It must be someone from the primitive race who gave you a treasure to save your life. Thinking of this, he and Sword Lunatic looked at each other and directly attacked. "You go and deal with that eyesore. I'll deal with her," the old ancestor of the monster race said. Swoosh. After all these years, Sword Lunatic had already cultivated the drunken sword skill to perfection. His sword was terrifying. At this moment, facing Fang Chen, he did not hesitate to use his full strength. The drunken sword skill was dazzling. In the blink of an eye, he was close to Fang Chen. However, in the face of this dazzling drunken sword skill, Fang Chen shook his head and sneered, "How can an ant compete with the bright moon?" Boom. He activated the ultimate sword Dao and displayed the ultimate sword skill. The Sky Destroyer sword was gently swung out. With just one stroke, Sword Lunatic felt immense pressure. Catcher. Sword Lunatic's long sword shattered on the spot. The Sky Destroyer sword carried an indestructible sword chi and went straight for Sword Lunatic. This is the ultimate sword Dao. Finally, at the last moment, Sword Lunatic saw through it. He was terrified. He burned his blood essence and wanted to escape. Unfortunately, it was too late. With the Sky Destroyer sword combined with the ultimate sword Dao and Fang Chen's current cultivation realm, Sword Lunatic was completely suppressed. He had almost no strength to resist. Bang! The sword pierced through Sword Lunatic's head and he died instantly. At the side, the old ancestor of the monster race who was fighting with Princess Phoenix was stunned. How is this possible? Although he did not believe it, the truth was right in front of him. Fang Chen had used absolute strength to suppress Sword Lunatic and kill him. Then, Fang Chen looked coldly at the old ancestor of the monster race. The old ancestor was terrified and wanted to retreat. How can he be so strong? Even from so far away, he could feel the great threat from the cold sword light. Let's go. Chapter 3862. Without any hesitation, the ancestor of the monster race turned and left. At this moment, his heart was filled with fear. His only thought was to leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would lose his life here today. His heart was very complicated. He couldn't imagine that Fang Chen's strength had reached such a level after not seeing him for a few decades. Damn it. He clenched his fists tightly. His heart was filled with anger, but he didn't have time to think about anything else. He just wanted to escape. Burning his blood essence caused his strength to decrease rapidly. At this rate, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. He gritted his teeth and fled frantically. He knew Sword Lunatic's strength better than anyone else. In these few decades, the two of them had been searching for the Ghost Emperor's ghost weapon while exchanging pointers with each other. In the beginning, Sword Lunatic's strength was definitely inferior to his and was often suppressed by him. But as time passed, Sword Lunatic's understanding of the sword became deeper and deeper. Moreover, he seemed to be born for the drunken sword. In his hands, the drunken sword inheritance was perfectly unleashed. In just 30 years, he had completely comprehended the drunken sword inheritance. After that, he spent another 30 years to cultivate the drunken sword technique to perfection. Just a few days ago, he had exchanged pointers with Sword Lunatic. The latter was a true Sword Lunatic who was obsessed with the sword. As long as it could help him improve his sword Dao, he would do anything. This sparring session lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. From the start till the end, he had been suppressing Sword Lunatic. But at the very last moment, Sword Lunatic unleashed his strongest sword move. That sword move was simply too shocking. When he saw that sword move, he didn't even have the courage to block it and was directly defeated. If it wasn't for Sword Lunatic's control, he would have already died in Sword Lunatic's hands. From that moment on, he believed that Sword Lunatic had the strength of an invincible sage and was no weaker than him. He was very happy. If the two of them joined forces, even if they met an ultimate sage, they would be able to hold their own. The danger in the Cliff of Death would be greatly reduced and the chances of obtaining the Ghost Emperor's ghost weapon would increase. But in just a few days, they had fallen to such a state. One sword. Just a single strike had killed Jian Fengzi. Moreover, it had pierced through his head and destroyed his soul, leaving him no chance to escape. Just how powerful was Fang Chen to be able to crush Jian Fengzi in such a manner? The patriarch of the demonic beast race did not dare to imagine. At this moment, he was burning his essence blood crazily. The essence blood in his body was about to run out. However, he could vaguely sense a terrifying aura behind him. "You can't escape." Fang Chen coldly sneered. The old ancestor of the monster race and the sword lunatic were both working for the Ghost Emperor. Moreover, they had even forced Princess Phoenix to fall into the Soul River. If it wasn't for her identity and the methods of the primitive races, Princess Phoenix would have already perished. With all kinds of hatred added up, there was no way he would let the demonic beast clan's patriarch go. Kill. Fang Chen held the heaven-standing sword in his hand and swung it across the air. Tens of thousands of swordlight descended from the sky with unparalleled power. It pierced through the heavens and the earth at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye, and directly shot towards the ancestor of the monsters. When the latter saw this, he turned pale with fright and cried out in alarm. "Catcher!" Although the ancestor of the demonic beast race tried his best to dodge, due to the excessive consumption of essence blood in the process of escaping, his combat strength was greatly reduced. He desperately twisted his body, wanting to dodge, but in the end, he was still mercilessly pierced by the sword light. Boom! The sword light instantly pierced through the chest of the ancestor of the demonic beast race. Blood spurted out from his body and he was on the verge of collapsing. "No, I can't die." He was the only one left in the demonic beast race. If he died, the demonic beast race would be considered to be completely annihilated. He would never allow such a thing to happen to him. His eyes were scarlet red, and he was extremely deranged. He gritted his teeth and slammed his palm, forcefully shattering the sword light that pierced through his chest. Although there were still remnants of essence blood in his chest, he could no longer care so much. He forcefully burned the last of his essence blood and rushed into the mountain range in front of him. Dong! Like a meteor falling, a sudden clap of thunder rang out in the lush mountain range. Flames spread out, engulfing the entire mountain range. In the blink of an eye, the mountain range was set ablaze. At this moment, Fang Chen and Princess Huang chased after him. They floated in the air and stared at the mountain range that was set ablaze. "Is he dead?" Princess Huang asked. Fang Chen shook his head, "I'm not sure." The ancestor of the demonic beast race was extremely powerful. Moreover, he had lived for too long. His methods were unpredictable. Before seeing the corpse, Fang Chen wouldn't jump to a conclusion. "Let's go down and take a look." Princess Huang nodded. Her fair palm waved downwards. Instantly, it started to drizzle. The raindrops covered the entire mountain range, unceasingly dripping onto the fire. Not long later, the fire was under control. At this moment, Princess Huang increased the number of raindrops. Very soon, the fire in the mountain range was completely extinguished. What entered their eyes was a messy mountain range. Many towering trees were burned to ashes. The weeds on the ground had also lost their vitality. If someone passed by, they would definitely think that a world-shaking battle had occurred here. Fang Chen's powerful divine sense enveloped the entire mountain range as he began to search. The ancestor of the demonic beast race was a hidden danger. He had to be dealt with. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Especially when he was controlled by the Ghost Emperor. Perhaps the latter could control the ghost artifact through him. Once he obtained the ghost artifact, it would be troublesome. Therefore, no matter what, the ancestor of the demonic beast race had to die. "Can't find him?" Fang Chen frowned. After searching the entire mountain range, he actually couldn't find the corpse of the ancestor of the demonic beast race. He couldn't even find his aura. Logically speaking, even if he wasn't dead, he should have left a trace of his aura in the air. But now, he couldn't find anything. A cicada shedding its carapace? Princess Huang frowned. The strength of the ancestor of the demonic beast race was on par with Sword Lunatic. Naturally, it was impossible for him to hide from Fang Chen. What method did he use to escape from under their noses? After a long time, the corner of Fang Chen's mouth curled up, revealing a sinister and terrifying smile. Interesting, really interesting. Even I was deceived. At this moment, Fang Chen's dark eyes were focused on a towering tree that had turned into ashes. There was a tree root there that wasn't burned. In that situation just now, the tree root was actually intact. What did this mean? Princess Huang also noticed it and instantly raised her vigilance. She exchanged a glance with Fang Chen and quietly came to the tree root. The surroundings of the tree roots were surrounded by ashes, and he was almost deceived. Primordial Sword Lord. Chapter 3863. The tribe that the ancestor of the demonic beast tribe belonged to was an extremely special tribe. Although it was slightly inferior to the top tribes, it was still an ancient tribe after all. It had many means and it was unimaginable. Sword Maniac was killed by Fang Chen with a single slash. This caused the ancestor of the demonic beast tribe to lose all courage to fight against Fang Chen. Therefore, he started to escape immediately. However, the mountain range that was burned by the flames had turned into ruins. Some burnt tree roots that were buried in the ruins were not discovered by Fang Chen and Princess Huang at first. However, after careful observation, they finally discovered that something was amiss. In a certain part of the mountain range, the towering tree that had turned into ruins had not completely collapsed. Instead, it stubbornly left behind some tree roots. It was the tree roots in the ashes that attracted the attention of Fang Chen and Princess Huang. The powerful sea of fire just now had burned the heavens and earth. Even the void was distorted. Fang Chen did not believe that an ordinary towering tree could withstand the burning of the sea of fire. There's a problem. Princess Huang also felt that something was amiss. The two of them looked at each other and then quickly came to the sky above the tree roots that were covered in ashes. At this moment, Princess Huang was surrounded by a cold aura. She opened her fair hands and waved them gently. Suddenly, the temperature in the void dropped. Then, snowflakes drifted down and sealed the void around the tree roots. Seeing this, Fang Chen raised his palm. The tip of the sky-destroying sword carried an indestructible sword chi and gently pushed away the ashes around the tree roots. After a while, the tree roots were clearly seen. In the blink of an eye, there was no problem with the tree roots. There were also signs of burning around the tree roots. However, after careful observation, one would discover that the tree roots were not dead. There was still vitality inside. What did this mean? It meant that the tree roots would regenerate soon. All the towering trees in the mountain range had turned into ashes. Only the tree roots of this towering tree had survived. There was only one explanation. The ancestor of the demonic beast tribe was hiding in the tree roots. The space within the tree roots. Princess Phoenix had already sealed the surroundings of the tree roots in ice. She carefully inspected the area and didn't discover any aura of the old ancestor of the demonic beast race. She frowned and turned to look at Fang Chen. The power in Fang Chen's body burst forth, and the heaven-destroying sword let out a cry. Terrifying ultimate sword chi poured into the heaven-destroying sword. Under Fang Chen's control, the ultimate sword chi gathered at the tip of the sword. Wang. Around the tip of the sword, there was a vast amount of energy. Fang Chen controlled the heaven-destroying sword, allowing the tip of the sword to gently touch the root. He realized that the roots of the tree were rather tough. The heaven-destroying sword did not manage to cut them. This made Fang Chen even more convinced that there was something wrong with the tree root. Immediately, he activated his strength and shook his wrist. The heaven-destroying sword drew a strange trajectory and cut the tree root with its sharpness. Voila! Fang Chen reacted quickly and grabbed the cut root. The area around the root was smooth, and there was a faint warm aura. Fang Chen exerted force in his palm and directly crushed the root. Beep beep beep. However, a shocking scene appeared. The vitality in the root dissipated in an instant, and drops of blood dripped from the broken root. This is... Fang Chen exclaimed. This was not the blood of the root, but the blood of the patriarch of the demonic beasts. Where is he? Princess Huang looked around. Her void seal did not have any abnormalities. Fang Chen frowned and fell into deep thought. After a long while, he exerted force in his palm and completely crushed the remaining tree root. The blood of the patriarch of the demonic beasts dripped into the ashes. Golden cicada shell shedding. Fang Chen laughed bitterly and mocked himself. I did not expect him to make such a choice. Princess Huang did not understand and looked at Fang Chen in confusion. The latter explained, I once read about a tribe in the Lan book. They had a very mysterious innate superpower. This innate superpower was to burn one's own blood in exchange for energy with wood-based plants. Then, one could use the roots of the wood-based plants to escape. Of course, under normal circumstances, this tribe would not use their innate superpower. Because whenever they used their innate superpower, it meant that they had encountered a life and death crisis. Once they used their innate superpower, it meant that the blood in their body would be completely dried up. Even if they could use the roots of the plants to escape, their cultivation path would be interrupted. To put it simply, the consequence of doing so was to cut off all hope. In the future, they could only struggle at death's door and live in this cruel world. I did not expect to encounter it. Fang Chen curled his lips. This was something he had seen in the history books of the human race's sacred land in his previous life. He did not expect to encounter it in the origin world. Moreover, it was the patriarch of the demonic beasts. Then what should we do now? Princess Huang asked. It was a pity that they did not eliminate the root of the problem. He burned his blood essence and used his innate superpower. He has almost become a cripple. In this death cliff, he will not be able to survive. Fang Chen said. He was no longer qualified to fight for the Ghost Emperor's ghost artifact. Hiss. A cool breeze blew past, drying the blood in the ashes. Fang Chen and Princess Huang left the mountain range that had turned into ashes together. However, no one noticed that there was a sudden movement at the spot where the cool breeze had blown away the blood. The surrounding ashes quickly gathered together and formed a small sealed space. Then, a drop of blood that was hidden in the ashes suddenly appeared. After this drop of blood appeared, it fled in a panic with the help of the ashes. Soon, it disappeared into the horizon. The place where the Ghost Emperor's ghost artifact appeared was getting closer and closer. Fang Chen and Princess Huang also felt more and more suppressed. Along the way, they could often feel extremely powerful auras. They carefully circled around. Fortunately, these powerful existences seemed to have just awakened. Some of them were still in a half-awakened state and did not have the time to attack them. This allowed them to avoid danger. It's so depressing. On a towering mountain peak, Princess Huang stopped and looked into the distance with her beautiful eyes. It's normal. A divine war broke out in the Death Cliff back then and there were heavy casualties. Some almighty figures didn't die but fell into a deep sleep. The appearance of the Ghost Emperor's ghost artifact is a node that will ignite the entire Death Cliff. Fang Chen said. He had long realized this point. The harsh environment made him even more determined to seize the ghost artifact. How evil was the ghost artifact that could cause the Death Cliff to tremble? If it was obtained by someone with ulterior motives, how much bloodshed would it cause? Especially if it was obtained by the Ghost Emperor, it would definitely be a huge disaster for Fang Chen. It might even bring a devastating disaster to the Chaos Realm. This was definitely not what Fang Chen wanted to see. Fortunately, not only had his current cultivation recovered, but it had also risen to another level. It was difficult to find a match among the invincible saints. Even if he were to face an ultimate saint, he still had the strength to fight. Cooperating with Princess Huang, the chances of seizing the ghost artifact were still very high. For the latest updates and error-free reading, please bookmark this site to read the latest. Chapter 3864. They were getting closer and closer to the core of the Death Cliff. However, Fang Chen and Princess Huang could feel an immense pressure. After all, that was the place where the legendary Battle of Gods broke out. Back then, it was unknown how many experts had died there. It was said that the Ghost Emperor had lost his halberd there and lost his weapon. Eventually, he was trapped in the dragon-slaying cave. Who? Fang Chen took a deep breath and tried his best to calm his heart. At the same time, he turned his head and glanced at Princess Huang. The latter's identity was already known. She was a true member of the primitive race. However, because of her mother, her primitive race bloodline hadn't been fully activated. Moreover, since her master had accepted her as a disciple, she must have realized something. In such a dangerous place, the primitive race should have a way to deal with it, right? Why are you looking at me? Is there something on my face? Princess Huang was a little shy after being stared at by Fang Chen. Her face instantly blushed. She turned her head and didn't dare to look him in the eye as she pouted. Fang Chen shrugged. You are a member of the primitive race. Could it be that your master didn't give you any information about the death cliff? Hearing this, the blush on Princess Huang's face gradually dissipated. She returned to normal and solemnly said, Master gave me a map. She took out the map and unfolded it. Her fair finger pointed at a red dot on the map. This map is very vague. Master has only marked out a few dangerous places. This red dot is the location of the Soul River. As for this red dot, it is the core area of the death cliff. Fang Chen seriously looked at the map and discovered that there were a total of 9 red dots. Each red dot had a special mark. Among them, the core of the death cliff was marked the most clearly. MHM? Fang Chen was stunned. He didn't expect that in the death cliff, other than the Soul River, there were other dangerous places that were comparable to the Soul River. Master once warned me that the core of the death cliff is very special. After entering, something bad will happen. For so many years, even if an extreme saint entered, it would be difficult for anyone to come out. Master even felt that there was a layer of seal that isolated the core of the death cliff from the outside world. It formed a world of its own. Princess Huang told her the exact words that her master had told her. Fang Chen was stunned and his pupils shrunk. A world of its own, isolated from the outside world. Could it be that even the primitive clans were unable to detect the situation inside? Back then, how big of a war of the gods had erupted in the death cliff? Could it be more intense than the God-Perish battle? The Battle of the Gods was known as the Battle of the Fallen Gods. Every time it broke out, almost all the top experts in the chaotic realm would fall. This was also the reason why the battlefield of the fallen gods was so broken. As a result, countless years passed, and the primal chaos realm became weaker and weaker. Later on, Fang Chen came to know that this was a scheme of the devouring demon clan leader. He wanted to steal the fate of the chaos realm. Therefore, every once in a while, he would launch the battle of gods to reduce the number of top experts in the chaos realm, thus weakening the fate of the chaos realm. This method was very cruel. However, in a war of the races, it was either you die or I die. If the Chaos World could resist the invasion of the Devouring Demon Clan, then the Chaos World would rise and the Devouring Demon Clan would disappear from history. Fang Chen had a deep understanding of the God's Fall battle. However, at this moment, he couldn't help but wonder if the God's Fall battle or the Battle of Gods at the Death Cliff was more intense. Could it be that the top experts of the Chaos World were unwilling to be destroyed by the Devouring Demon Clan and forced their way into the Origin World? In the end, they were destroyed by the Devouring Demon Clan's patriarch. Of course, this was just his guess. Let's go. Fang Chen shook his head. Even if it was a world of its own and was incomparably dangerous, he still had to go in. After all, he shouldered a heavy responsibility and couldn't shrink back. Princess Phoenix nodded. Just when she was about to leave, the mountain suddenly collapsed. A beam of light shot out from the mountain and a sinister voice echoed through the air. You are the one who is going to die. Keek. After 19 chaos eras, I, Miayu, have finally awakened. The shocking voice spread out. Fang Chen and Princess Huang's bodies swayed and stabilized themselves with great difficulty. They suddenly discovered that there was a black-robed figure on the ruins of the mountain. His body was shrouded in an extremely cold and sinister aura. 19 chaos level yuans. Hearing this person's words, Fang Chen exclaimed in his heart. Since he was born, he didn't have a single chaos level yuan. But the person in front of him had been sleeping for 19 chaos level yuans and had now awakened. 2 ants. The black-robed expert who called himself Mier Yu discovered Fang Chen and Princess Huang. However, he didn't make a move. Instead, he asked, "Which force are you from?" "Primitive tribe." Princess Huang said. Sure enough, when the black-robed Mier Yu heard the words primitive tribe, his pupils shrank. But soon, he sneered and said, "You do have the bloodline of the primitive tribe in your body, but it hasn't been activated. I guess you must be an outer member, right?" After that, he exerted a suction force with his palm and pulled Princess Phoenix to his side. He grabbed her neck and spoke in a sinister voice, "I, the great Emperor Mier Yu, was once invincible in the primal chaos. Even if the old monsters from the primitive races came here, I wouldn't fear them." Crash. After saying that, he threw Princess Huang to the ground. "But today, I, great Emperor Mier Yu, have awakened. I don't want to kill. You can leave." Princess Huang was stunned and quickly got up to leave. "Did I allow you to leave?" Seeing that Fang Chen was about to leave, Great Emperor Mier Yu said coldly. "Senior." Princess Huang wanted to plead, but Great Emperor Mier Yu was unhappy. "I, Great Emperor Mier Yu, won't allow you to leave. You can't leave. You can leave first." Fang Chen cast a glance at Princess Huang, indicating for her to leave first. As for himself, he calmly looked at the Great Emperor Mier Yu. After Princess Huang disappeared, Fang Chen spoke. "I wonder what Senior wants me to stay behind for." "You're from the primal chaos world?" Great Emperor Mier Yu asked. Fang Chen nodded and looked at Great Emperor Mier Yu in surprise. The latter was unfathomable and he couldn't sense his aura at all. "Which faction do you belong to?" Great Emperor Mier Yu continued to ask. Fang Chen thought for a while and finally answered, "Supreme Fu Jian." His hometown was created by Supreme Fu Jian. Therefore, he should be part of Supreme Fu Jian's faction. "Supreme Fu Jian?" Great Emperor Mier Yu's expression softened. He waved his sleeve and said, "You're lucky. I owed Supreme Fu Jian a favor back then. Therefore, I won't kill you today. However, I don't wish to see anyone from the primal chaos world. Otherwise, I'll kill without mercy." From Great Emperor Mier Yu's words, Fang Chen deduced that he had a grudge with the others from the primal chaos world. His heart was filled with hope, and he left without looking back. Chapter 3865. Great Emperor Mier Yu was very strong. At least, Fang Chen did not have the courage to fight him. Some people did not even need to fight to dominate an era. Great Emperor Mier Yu was such a peak expert. Great Emperor Mier Yu was once a powerful existence in the chaotic realm. However, because of the war of deities in the Death Cliff, he had fallen into a deep sleep for 19 chaos eras. Although he had woken up now, his cultivation had fallen back to the 5 elements sacred realm. Just now, Fang Chen even felt that he was about to die. Fortunately, Great Emperor Mier Yu had let him go in the end. Supreme Fu Jian. The word Supreme Fu Jian appeared in Fang Chen's mind again. Ever since his hometown, Paragon Fujian had been guiding him, especially the copper bowl he had obtained in the North Sea, and the altar he had used to worship Paragon Fujian. Later, when he met the great sovereigns in the Reincarnation Road, they were not willing to say much when they talked about Supreme Fu Jian. Fang Chen felt that Supreme Fu Jian was getting more and more mysterious. Especially the ancient experts he met after entering the Death Cliff. Each of them was related to Supreme Fu Jian. From Lung Xian to Great Emperor Mier Yu, he wondered who he would meet later. Whoosh! Fang Chen adjusted his state of mind and calmed himself down. After that, he inclined his head and stared into the distance as he sped forward. Not long later, he saw a black dot in the distance. When he walked closer, he discovered that it was Princess Huang who was waiting for him. At this moment, Princess Huang was constantly looking behind her. She had an anxious expression on her face, as though she was worried about Fang Chen's safety. However, she knew that Great Emperor Mier Yu was simply too strong. Even if she returned, she would only be courting death. She might as well stay alive. If Fang Chen died in the hands of Great Emperor Mier Yu, she swore that she would definitely avenge Fang Chen and kill Great Emperor Mier Yu. Even if she died, she would not be afraid. At this moment, she suddenly saw a black figure coming from afar. She was stunned when she took a closer look. A gentle smile appeared on her anxious face. Are you okay? Whoosh. Fang Chen came closer and came to Princess Huang's side. He looked at her and said, I'm fine. Where's Great Emperor Mieu? Princess Huang was very curious as to why Great Emperor Mieu did not attack Fang Chen. From the looks of it, Fang Chen did not suffer any injuries. Clearly, Great Emperor Mieu had taken the initiative to let him go. Otherwise, with his strength, how could he have escaped from Great Emperor Mieu? Emperor Mieu is related to a human expert from the Chaos Realm, so he let me go, Fang Chen explained briefly. He was unwilling to mention Sovereign Fu Jian in the Origin World. After all, the heavenly Tao of the Origin World represented the devouring demon race. If the patriarch of the devouring demon race learned about Supreme Fu Jian through the heavenly Tao, it would cause unnecessary trouble. Let's go. We need to hurry and enter the core area of the Death Cliff. Princess Huang was also a little afraid. If another ancient expert like Great Emperor Mieu appeared, they wouldn't be able to handle it. Not every ancient expert was afraid of the primitive tribes. Hoo. The two of them quickly disappeared into the darkness. Voila! The space where they were just a moment ago distorted, and Great Emperor Mieu appeared out of thin air. A complicated expression appeared on his cold face. Supreme Fu Jian's successor? He muttered to himself, his voice filled with melancholy and sadness. After watching for a long time and making sure that Fang Chen and Princess Huang were far away, he came back to his senses. He shook his head hard and muttered to himself, after sleeping for 19 chaos eras, I wonder if those old fellows are still alive. The first person he thought of was Lung Xian. Lung Xian, are you still alive? Back then, he did not hesitate to pay any price for Lung Xian. He even started a great war that destroyed the world and killed countless living beings. He was called the Demon Emperor. Lung Xian was the only one who did not look at him strangely. He loved Lung Xian deeply, but her heart belonged to someone else. In the end, he let go of everything and blessed Lung Xian. Earlier, he had sensed the aura of the Chaos Realm on Fang Chen, so he asked who Supreme Fu Jian was to him. After learning about their relationship, he let Fang Chen go. This was also an explanation for Lung Xian. Great Emperor Mieu would never touch the person he liked, even if it was that person's descendant. Hoo. On this day, Great Emperor Mieu crossed the Cliff of Death and used a powerful tracking technique to find Lung Xian. Half a month later, he sensed a trace of Lung Xian's aura. Great Emperor Mieu stood on the ground and looked around. Lung Xian has been here before. He sensed a familiar aura, but it was very faint. This proved that Lung Xian had stayed here for a short while. He followed the aura and began to search for Lung Xian. Soon, he came to the edge of the Soul River and saw the living dead in the Soul River. Lung Xian! Great Emperor Mieu screamed at the top of his lungs. He jumped into the Soul River, wanting to save Lung Xian, but he was repelled the moment he touched the Soul River. Hiss. His robe was corroded by the Soul River. Damn it! Great Emperor Mieu was furious when he saw Lung Xian being helpless. Who is it? Great Emperor Mieu was burning with anger. He wanted to know who forced Lung Xian into the Soul River. He closed his eyes and carefully approached the Soul River with his powerful consciousness. Finally, he came into contact with Lung Xian's aura. Even though the Soul River's repelling force was strong, he was once a chaotic realm existence. Hiss. After a while, he retracted his consciousness. His face was ferocious as he sensed another aura from Lung Xian. I don't care who you are. How dare you hurt Lung Xian? I want you dead. Great Emperor Mieu's eyes were filled with determination as he turned and left. He tracked the culprit from Lung Xian's aura. On this day, someone saw a terrifying demon in the Cliff of Death. He brought along billions of demonic qi and invaded a canyon. His formation was so powerful that it caused the heavens to crumble and the earth to crack. There were also people who saw two peak experts fighting fiercely. They could destroy the heavens and the earth with a raise of their hands. All in all, there were different opinions about this battle. Many people listed the place of the battle as an extremely dangerous place and did not dare to go near it. The news quickly spread. Some powers were also secretly assessing the identity of the person who had attacked the canyon. In the end, through various clues, powerful factions, and ancient experts, they found out that the person who attacked the canyon was Great Emperor Mieu. He was a chaotic realm expert known as the Demon Emperor. What? Great Emperor Mieu has awakened? Heavens, is he going to bathe the cliff of death in blood? Not necessarily. The ancient experts have been suppressed by the heavenly Tao, causing their realms to drop. Great Emperor Mieu was once a chaotic realm expert, but now, he's a 5 elements sacred realm expert like us. A sacred realm expert wants to bathe the cliff of death in blood. He's dreaming. Chapter 3866. The expert who had ambushed Lung Xian was powerful, but he couldn't fight back against Great Emperor Mieu, who used to be a true chaos realm existence. Great Emperor Mieu had invaded his territory with billions of demonic qi, and he had been killed in the end. Why did you attack me? That person knelt on the ground, blood spurting out. He was dying. He didn't understand why Great Emperor Mieu would attack a weakling like him. I have no grudge against you. Great Emperor Mieu sneered. No grudge. From the moment you attacked Lung Xian, we'll never rest until one of us is dead. When these words were spoken, that person's body trembled, and he was filled with despair. Lung Xian was the cause of everything. I hate you. He hated himself, hated the heavens, and hated fate for playing tricks on him. He attacked Lung Xian for 2 reasons. The first was revenge, and the second was to get some information about Supreme Fujian from her. Who would have thought that he'd end up provoking a demon like Great Emperor Mieu? He closed his eyes in pain. Today was a dead end. Die. Great Emperor Mieu didn't hesitate. He raised his hand, and a vast power rushed out like a flood, destroying that person's body. Crack. He clenched his hand and grabbed a ball of Yuan spirit light. Trying to escape. Great Emperor Mieu sneered. It'd be a joke if he let someone escape right under his nose. He squeezed his hand and crushed the ball of Yuan spirit light. At this point, this ancient expert was completely wiped out. Dong dong dong. The entire territory was destroyed by demonic qi, turning into ruins. In the distance, the experts of the various factions were watching. Some of the ancient experts who'd awakened sighed. Great Emperor Mieu is too strong. So what if he's fallen from the saint realm? He's still the arrogant demon emperor. Let's go. If Great Emperor Mieu finds us, we'll die. Some of the weaker cultivators started to leave the place. Great Emperor Mieu stood on the ruins and sensed many familiar auras. Mieu, you've awakened too? An old voice came from the void. I didn't expect you to wake up after being asleep for 19 chaos realms. You've just woken up, and you've already caused such a huge commotion. Voices came from all directions. These were the ancient experts who knew Great Emperor Mieu. They had awakened before Great Emperor Mieu and had been hiding near the core of the Death Cliff all this while. Now that Great Emperor Mieu had made such a big commotion, it naturally alerted them. Mieu. Great Emperor Mieu looked around and asked, Lung Xian has fallen into the Soul River. Do you have any ideas? He wanted to save Lung Xian. However, as long as one got close to the Soul River, one would be corroded by the water of the Soul River. Not even billions of demonic qi could withstand it. Countless sighs came from the void. There's nothing we can do about it. The deterrence of the Soul River is too strong, especially towards old guys like us. That's right. As long as we enter the Soul River, we will definitely die. We've been asleep for countless years and finally woke up. The world has changed. Don't act rashly. Everyone tried to persuade Great Emperor Mieu. After all, the world was no longer their era. The Soul River had changed, and they couldn't get close. Sigh, it's a pity for Lung Xian. She was so stunning that even Supreme Fujian wanted to take a look at her, but she ended up like this. Yeah. She had so many suitors back then, but she was infatuated with Supreme Fujian. Mieu, there are some things you should let go of. Everyone sighed. Let go. Great Emperor Mieu shook his head. This wasn't his character. Plus, it was Lung Xian, the person he'd once loved deeply. He'd even reconciled with Supreme Fujian for the person he loved, and gave Lungxian to him wholeheartedly. Now that he'd been asleep for 19 chaos realms, he saw Lungxian falling into the Soul River as soon as he woke up. He was furious. Listening to the advice and pity of the ancient experts who'd just woken up, he clenched his fists. Billions of demonic chi stirred as if it was going to tear the sky apart. Miayu, don't be rash. Although devouring demon clan's leader was injured in the battle back then, he absorbed 2/3 of the fate of the primal chaos realm. He's only one step away from becoming a primal chaos realm controller. If you go too far and anger him, we'll all die. Someone advised. That's right. Be careful. The Death Cliff hasn't been peaceful recently. Let's go. Soon, the auras in the void all retreated. Only Great Emperor Miayu stood on the ruins. No one knew what he was thinking. No one knew what he was going to do. After going through so many hardships, they'd finally arrived at the core of the Death Cliff. One more step and they'd officially enter the core. Who? Princess Huang panted heavily. Ever since they'd met Great Emperor Miayu, they'd been running all the way here. They were afraid that they'd meet some ancient awakened experts. Those ancient awakened experts seemed to be afraid of the core of the Death Cliff. Princess Huang was a little puzzled. Could it be that there's an even stronger existence here? Fang Chen stared ahead. A layer of grey aura connected the entire heaven and earth. Outsiders couldn't see the scene inside. It formed a world of its own. Fang Chen thought of this term. The core of the Death Cliff formed a world of its own. It was extraordinary. Perhaps this was the reason why those ancient awakened experts were afraid of the core. What do you mean? Princess Huang asked. Ever since she'd experienced the situation in the palace under the Soul River, she'd developed a special feeling for Fang Chen. In her mind, the words from the inherited memories echoed. This was her mother's choice. It was also her own choice. Let's check it out first before entering. Fang Chen said cautiously. After all, no one knew what was in the core. They had to be cautious. He didn't want to meet another ancient expert like Great Emperor Miayu. All right, we'll rest here for a month. Princess Huang nodded. A faint smile appeared on her fair face. She didn't know when, but she felt that Fang Chen had become the perfect image in her heart. A month later, we'll officially step into the core of the Death Cliff. At that time, regardless of life or death, she'd accompany him. Of course, this was just her wishful thinking. Fang Chen hadn't forgotten his mission. His only purpose in coming to the origin world was to evolve his perfect bloodline and step into the chaotic supreme realm to fight against the devouring devil race. He still remembered. His wife and daughter were waiting for his triumphant return in the chaotic world.